Hi, everybody. It's Lori and Lawrence, and today we have special guest Thomas Thompson with us, who has agreed to join us, and we're excited to have him with us. Hi, Thomas. Do you go by Thomas
Hello.
or Tom?
Thomas is fine, or Tom's fine,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Either one.
Hi,
Tom,
Lawrence. How are you
Tom,
this week?
I'm all right. I've been soaking up the sun, Laurie, and making the most of it because it doesn't last long here. We don't get wall-to-wall sunshine like you do, 24, all year round. It's once in a blue moon, so everybody gets out if they can.
Well, you look like you've got a little sun on your cheeks, so
Yeah, he does.
that's nice.
A bit, yeah. I know you take it for
Okay.
granted, like.
So, welcome everybody who has joined us, and as we go along, hopefully some more will join, but it's kind of imperative that when you watch this in the rerun or the archived version, that you catch it at the beginning, because many people just sort of scan through because we do these extra long 2 and 3 hour shows. So anyway, okay, so here we go. Had kind of an exciting week, at least Lawrence and I have, with being challenged in defending our research with regards to the diamond-shaped map, or otherwise known as the collignon projection. That is Collignon, and you can look it up online easily enough and follow along with what we are going to be discussing. That is one aspect of what we're going to talk about today, or tonight. The other thing is, obviously, we're going to also look at the square and rectangle shaped aspect of the other side of the flat Earth community. It's the much smaller side on the square, because most people were introduced, and what we are now beginning to believe, or have decided from our look at it, is that people are being indoctrinated into the flat Earth movement and community with the azimuthal equidistant map and model as the so-called flat Earth theory, so-called flat Earth map or model. And we have systematically over the last months been picking it apart to the point where if anybody still follows that without having watched any of our research, a lot of it again today. So if you still follow that and believe that that is considered the flat Earth map, you can leave this group out of that equation, because we do not consider it the flat Earth map. So
No, not at all.
So Lawrence, I want to start with you. You told me earlier today that you had a moment of clarity, and then maybe you had another one of your epiphanies. So I would love to hear what revelation you have.
Yeah, I was just sat there and having a few thoughts, and the one that kept going through my mind is that with the model that best fits reality is the seamless passage from east to west, which is actually mirrored by reality, because if you spoke to any glober and asked them if you travelled east or west and continued on the same bearing, would you end up back where you started? And they would all say yes. They think they live on a globe, but that reality is true. But it's not a globe, it's the flat Earth. So it is possible. You can fly from the United States to Japan, you can fly east and get there, and you can fly west and get there. One way going west is a lot quicker than going east, but there is a shortcut. There is a shortcut on the globe. If there's a shortcut on the globe, there has to be shortcuts on the Earth. It's as simple as that. So
I hadn't thought of that. You're right on that. I hadn't thought about that.
There has to be a shortcut, yeah. There are shortcuts on the globe. The globe doesn't exist, but everybody thinks it does. So if the globe reality is the same as the flat Earth reality, which it is, down on the ground, the things that you can do on the globe, you can also do on the flat Earth. So the globe has shortcuts. So when Mark Sargent says there are no shortcuts on the flat Earth, what he's really saying is there's no shortcuts on his false model of the flat Earth. On the real model, there are shortcuts. So I was thinking, what happens when you hit the northern areas of the map, and all sorts of possibilities where you'd hit the north and come back out in the south. But I've done a little sketch here, so I'll just bring it up. If I can get the screen share on again. Is it going to let me? There we go. Screen share. So I'll bring this share up. So on here, this is the Calignum map, and I've shown 8 points on here, which shows you what happens, in my opinion, when you reach the seamless boundary. So if, for example, you travel to the west, you come out at exit 1, which is in the top left-hand corner, you would re-emerge on the east side of the map at entrance 2.
So you
Okay.
take off, you're staying on the source and
Yeah, and then if you went the other way and left on the east, which is exit 3, you would re-emerge at entrance 4 on the west. Now, going up north, I was always thinking that you'd end up in the South Pole if you went up through the North Pole. But if you can imagine that there were 2 people heading to the point on the edge where exit 5 is, yeah, somebody was travelling from the east to the west to reach exit 5, and somebody was travelling north from the south to the north, and these 2 people both met at exit 5 and went over the boundary. One wouldn't end up somewhere and the other somewhere else. They're both going to end up at the same place because they've both crossed it at the same point. And where they're going to come out is entrance 6, which is still on the north, but on the opposite side of that line of latitude. And the same in the south. You hit the South Pole, exit 7, you're going to come back at entrance 8. So if somebody was sailing a boat there, you know, they would re-emerge at entrance 8 and think that they've sailed round the South Pole, which isn't there. So there isn't really a north and south, because what you've really got, you've got a northeast, a northwest, a southeast and southwest, but it's the edges at the sides that connect with each other. There is no north or south apart from the points of convergence right at the very top. And if you went to the very top and you were 10 feet to the left of it, you would re-emerge 10 feet to the right of it. That's how I see it working, and it makes sense. So people say, yeah, but you've used government information. Well, yes, I have. I've used longitude and latitude to construct this map. That map is a mirror image of where everything would be using longitude and latitude on a flat map. It's the same map as Mercator, but taking out all the distortion. So Mercator made it into a rectangle so that people could navigate more easily. When you take the distortions out, it concertinas into this diamond shape, and it's a perfect match for all the longitude and latitude data. So this is why this particular map fits best for routes and flight things. You know, we did over 50 a few months back. I did over 50 flight routes, and most of them were within 5% of the official distance. There was a few that were about 15% out, but those turned out to be great circle routes with elongated curves, which would probably explain the 15%. We still don't know why aircraft companies take these great circle routes on a flat Earth. It doesn't seem to make much sense, and they may well be wasting fuel. So anyway, I'll take that down now. If you want to watch it, screenshot, see what it is. There we go. Shut that down. So that was my moment of clarity. There is no north and south, really. Northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. But the sides of the map always come out on the other side. Even if you're heading north, you just come out in the same hemisphere, but on the opposite side, not in the reverse hemisphere.
So Lawrence, this is why I'm just extrapolating what you just shared, okay? So this would be why they don't want us traveling across Antarctica or traveling across the North Pole. Both of those areas are no-fly zones toward what would be considered the center. We all know that the so-called South Pole is not at the so-called center of Antarctica, but people who, no one has ever polar circumnavigated the Earth. No one has ever flown from the South Pole over the North Pole and back around to the South Pole in a loop polar circumnavigation, because apparently you can't go that way. It just loops you back to where you were, or to the edge of where you were. So idea of why you can't go there is not because you can't, they don't want you to go there, because you can't go there, is what I'm saying. You would just end up back where you were. It would be a time loop, because that is the fourth dimension is time, right?
Yeah. As soon as you hit the edge, you go to the complete opposite side of the same latitude, and you come out there wherever it is. You know, so if you're at 85 degrees north and you travel up there and you hit the side of the diamond map, you would come out on the opposite side of the diamond map, but in the same hemisphere. It's the same as if you're going east and west.
So what does this do to the hollow earth theory?
To the hollow earth theory?
Yeah.
Well, the hollow earth theory...
People who believe in the hollow earth theory, Lawrence, you know that, right?
Well, I'm not sure. What's the difference between Lord Stephen Christ? Because he believes that we live on the inside of a dome. Sorry, the inside of a sphere. And the hollow earthers believe we live on the inside of a sphere. What is the difference?
There really wouldn't be any difference, except for a hollow earth would appear. I mean, a lot of people almost religiously believe Admiral Byrd's account in his diary of going inside the Earth from the South Pole, and I believe the North Pole, and there's like a whole thing happening inside the Earth. So I've never bought into the account. I think it's completely just all fictitious mythology.
That Admiral Byrd, that they're putting out more disinformation now, and I've seen it several times this week where people are saying that when Admiral Byrd did his expeditions there, planes were crashing into a hidden barrier and smashing up, and they've been posting pictures of planes on the ground.
Right.
And this is all new. It's just come out of nowhere.
Right. Never heard of this before. Is this part of the Mandela effect? Is all this new information and these new maps that are showing up of round Earth? Okay, so let's give our guest, because you and I can talk for hours and hours, as everyone knows. Let's give our guest an opportunity to introduce his research and history of tracking the flat Earth concept and how he got there and so on. So, Thomas, share with us your story. Oops, hold on. Your mic is muted. Okay, let's try again. Uh-oh. No. Let's see.
He might have muted it himself on the screen.
Are you muted?
I don't know.
Oh, no. Okay, I tell you what you do. This happens sometimes. So, there's a help person. Can you hear us even? You might want to get out and come back in by the link that I sent you, because sometimes if the sound drops out, there's no fix for it except to come back in again.
Okay, it's gone. Yeah. So yeah, this week there's been a lot of discussion on these Facebook pages about the flat Earth, and it's remarkable how many people are quick to call things out as total rubbish, and they haven't even looked at it. And when you ask them to back what they're saying up with some evidence, prove that it's rubbish, they have nothing. They just attack me or they attack you because they haven't got anything.
Oh, and my favorite is when they say, "Oh, you're always there to back Lawrence up." Well, hello. We've been doing a show together for a long time. If he's not here to answer your question or to rebut what you're saying, of course, if I am here to get the notification, of course, I'm going to respond and try to give you the idea of what Lawrence was saying. Okay, now we have sound. Now we have sound from you. We just don't have camera.
Okay. Oh, we don't have camera now.
No camera.
You have to click on it. Click on your camera bit at the top.
Come here and click on it. Here, Chris, come here and click on the camera on the top. Here, you can hear him.
Click on the camera on top.
Yeah, they're not seeing my picture. They hear the sound, but I have no.
Little icon on the top saying switch the camera on.
It's he's on a phone. Lawrence.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, he's back now.
Okay, here we go. Now we're all set. Please talk before everything craps out again.
All right. Like I said, I grew up basically in the occult, from the occult aspect of all this. Ever since I was 5 and I could first learn how to read, I was reading UFO books, aliens, all this kind of stuff, the Bigfoot. My family, although I wasn't, my family was involved in high levels of Freemasonry, and my father was a Shriner. Basically, I wanted to discover am I going out? Oh, no. I was looking for the secrets, whatever secrets the Masons had, things of this nature. I lost power again, didn't I?
No, you're fine. Keep going.
No, you're still going.
We'll let you know.
Okay. So yeah, I came in movement from the occult aspect, and I realized that what I was being taught wasn't the truth from the occult point of view. And as the more and more I got into this, suddenly I started realizing they're holding more and more secrets, and then that's when the flat earth suddenly popped up. And when that popped up, I think, who was it? I think it was Mark Sargent. It was the first video guy I came across in the flat earth. When I first discovered it, I was like, no, this can't be a Masonic secret here. This is a joke. No one believes in the flat earth. You know, Copernicus and all this. And wow, when I read that, or when I watched his little video, I was just absolutely stunned. And so I went through that, and I tried to verify anything that I could, doing simple little experiments. And that's when I came across my first problem. I realized, yes, indeed, the Earth is flat. But I realized that the map they were telling me, you know, was a round azimuthal map. I realized very quickly how wrong this was. And all of a sudden I was realizing, wait a minute, they're running a second PSYOP on me. The first PSYOP was to trick me into the ball. Now this second PSYOP is to trick me into this round map. So that's kind of where I come from. I had a very religious, spiritual background. I've studied most of the world's major religions. It was always about higher plane secrets. So that's kind of where I come in from all this.
Most people that don't understand when someone says, I came at this from an occult, aspect or standpoint, before you think that he was a witch or a warlock or something, please go look up what occult means. It just means hidden. That's all it means. And people who dig into the hidden mysteries of the universe are into understanding and researching the occult.
Metaphysics might be a better term, because in no way do I practice any form of deviltry associated with any religion. I don't support any church, any secret societies. I'm all about finding these ancient texts, whatever the religion is, be it Christianity, which is my preference, so I'll admit that. But I'll study, they're texts to me that have a history, that tells our history, whether we believe them or not. Because my idea, and this is going to sound a little strange, but here's my idea. I believe that there's over 260 cultures that tell of this flood, a great flood that happened on our planet, or plane. And I'm thinking, from the evidence that I've reviewed, that the people before this flood era were probably geniuses by our standards. Genetically, mentally, physically, everything about them was just better than us. And I believe they knew that this flood was going to take place. And so they went to preserve the knowledge that they had so that once the flood was over, they could bring all their science back. And I think that's where we got religion. I think some goofball picked it up, turned it into something it wasn't meant to be. And next thing you know, you have people worshiping weird gods and sacrificing animals and doing all kinds of nonsense. And from my point of view, I think I see scriptures, regardless of whether it's, the Christian scriptures, the Hebrew. I was a Hindu for many, many years. It doesn't matter. It's all a science book as far as I'm concerned. I see it from a scientific point of view. I don't see our ancestors as being primitive, superstitious, cave-dragging, ape men. I don't believe that at all. And I think that's where where we get a lot of our stories of Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff like that. I think it was all these pre-flood civilization.
So you immediately or pretty quickly got the vibe that something was wrong with the flat Earth map and model. And that was
right.
Did you go looking elsewhere for how the flat Earth worked?
Right. Now, if I could twist this camera, but can you see that map right there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. My problem with this map is if you look at the direction that South America and Africa are pointing, it's like they're straight down. Now, the problem is on the azimuthal map, these are pointed out on an angle. This is 5,157.7 miles from this tip to this tip. You put it on the azimuthal map, it doesn't work. Now here, I propose a little experiment for people. Here's what you need to do, is you need to get a globe, just any old globe, it doesn't matter the size, pull up that round flat Earth map and get a piece of yarn. And what you're going to do is you're going to lay the yarn across the United States and cut it so the yarn is the exact distance. It doesn't have to be accurate. This is basically going to represent 2,600 miles. Now, when you take that piece of yarn and you put it between the tip of South America and Africa, and say, well, how many pieces of yarn do I need to connect that? It takes 2 pieces of yarn. But when I go to the round flat Earth map, the United States is far smaller, and I'll explain why in a minute. So my yarn is way shorter, and now all of a sudden I need like 6 to 7 pieces of yarn. Each one of them yarns represents 2,600 miles. Now I'm going from 2 pieces of yarn to 6 pieces of yarn. It doesn't have to be accurate to know we have a major problem here. There's no conceivable way, because you have airports all along these edges. If you twist this continent just the slightest bit out of whack, every one of them airports are going to be wrong. They're going to be off. Now here's what they did. If you peel this map off of a globe, you can see as these little grooves in here, these empty spaces, these will be filled in once you fold those over on top of the ball, correct? Now what they did is they took this tip and they pushed it into that tip. Then they took these 2 tips and they pushed it into that. Then took those, and what they did is they formed a circle. Well, the problem with this is, yes, you eliminate all this space, but now you just doubled to tripled all this space. And all they did when they made that circle, line around it and filled all this in with water. And they're wondering why now, all of a sudden, none of their measurements add up. Because, let me find this other little thing here. I need to find. What they're not realizing is area. And my problem with the area is right here. All right, let's blow this up a little bit.
All right, you need to turn your camera phone back around to the computer.
Okay, there we go.
Right.
Okay, can you see the?
Go a little bit more, I guess, to the left, if that makes any sense, because it's that
direction.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, now here's my thing. What I'm speaking on is area. Here's my equator, this line right here. This has a certain amount of area. If I was to take a globe and smash it, well, first of all, set the globe on the ground so that north is straight up, south is straight down, and I smash it perfectly flat. The equator is going to be at the outer edge. Now that means all of the top is going to be the north, all of the bottom is going to be the south. Well, they have equal areas in both the north and the south. Whether it's water or land, it has equal amount of area. When you look at this, here's my north area, and look, I can take this whole thing and put it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can put it 5. There's 5 times as much area in the South Pole as there is, in the southern hemisphere than there is in the northern hemisphere. That's not on the globe. Whether we like the globe or not, the globe is a working model. I can check any airport on that globe and see, generally speaking, that globe will work. But,
well, and you just described why we arrived, or Lawrence particularly arrived at that diamond map, because the southern hemisphere plane is the same area as the northern one.
And Lawrence's map covers that beautifully. I never really considered that. I was kind of stumped. I could never really follow him sometimes on his theories. But the more I think about it...
Imagine being me.
I'm definitely a diamond map a little bit more consideration. But like I said, I put so much time into free energy's square model.
Oh, don't think we haven't. We've watched all of his videos. We've, deconstructed all of his theories and hypotheses and so on and so forth as well.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question.
There's something between these two. One may be the map and the other may be the model. He doesn't really have a map. He has a model. So he hasn't been able to debunk Lawrence's map, and we haven't been able to debunk his model. So,
well, let me ask you this: well, for my mind, I think in terms of the rectangle. Let's say I'm at the western wall, and where is the western wall? I know we've set an international date line, and we kind of assume that's the western wall. But actually, at what point can I go out in a boat and look across it? And you see what I'm saying? Where can I go and stand where I'm actually standing on both sides? Can we locate a line like that?
I said the same thing one day. I said, what if you had 3 aircraft carrier ships sailing west across the international dateline area, and they were staggered, one ahead of the other, okay, back, and one went across the dateline. Would 2 and 3 still see them, or would they be back over there?
Yeah, it's almost
like still be there, right?
Right.
Because
yeah.
The only difference between where they are is time, not space. Okay, so that's where the 4th dimension concept starts to come in and jerk your head around.
Well, yeah, maybe that's why these islands and places on this international dateline, they've got military bases all around there. To maybe that's the area that's being guarded rather than the polar regions. Because if it's true that you've got a flotilla of boats and they're all in line, and one mysteriously vanishes once it goes over this notional point, then that would give the game away. So maybe the military are out there to keep boats further apart so they can't see what's going on.
Well, let's look at it this way, Thomas. The area at the point of, let's say, the diamond, okay, not the square, but the diamond. Let's just look at that for a second, okay? The area where that western point of the diamond is would be some of the least traveled by boat or by plane, probably, areas of the Pacific. And they do have international shipping lanes that they stay pretty close to all the time for many reasons. One has always been piracy. But random boats just don't go outside of these normal shipping lanes. Now, let's say we have some person in he's on his lifetime global trek around the world by himself in a sailboat or motorized sailboat. Is there somebody out there that's going to make sure they follow this person and see where they're going? It wouldn't matter, because by themselves, they cross this imaginary line. They're just continuing on in time and in space.
It's so
right?
crazy. It's so crazy.
Oh, I know, and that's why people have a hard time wrapping their heads around it. But because we're indoctrinated from the time we're children to an even more supernatural sounding phenomenal model. The Earth and the balls and the spinning and the vortexing and the hundreds of thousands of miles an hour through space and so on and so forth. We're used to that, so we don't question it. But when somebody introduces you to a new concept that's a little supernatural sounding, then suddenly, oh no, I can't go there.
Yeah, that sounds too crazy. But you know what? That's the secret that the Freemasons are holding, because they know all about. See, one thing they're not teaching us when we first get introduced to this flat Earth movement is they're not teaching us where exactly this 3D plane sits. And until you understand that it's actually sitting in, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it hyperspace or the astral plane. Until you understand that our 3D dimension actually sits in something, then portals don't make any sense to you. And that's the occult aspect of it. That's the occult information. That's the thing that the Freemasons are hiding. Because I believe they want us to know the Earth is flat. Because I believe they've been promoting it through the movies, through the UN flag. But they don't want us to know about that portal system. Well,
they did set us up in a catch-22, so to speak, because they needed, but to help them with control, they needed technology that they introduced to us as humans, computers, telephones, televisions, so on and so forth. That was their method of controlling us. But then sooner or later, silly little humans are going to use those tools to figure stuff out. So sooner or later, there's the catch-22 slapping them in the face. Well, now they're going to figure out that the Earth is flat and that the stars aren't suns billions of miles away and so on. So sooner or later, we're going to have to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. So
yeah, soon as you expose the portal aspect of this, immediately, once people understand that science, Freemasonry no longer has any power, because that's their secret. Their secret is it's flat and that it's some sort of square. At least that's from the diagrams that I've seen from the Freemasons. They show the pillars of Jacob and Boaz like this. Well, I believe that them two pillars are actually representing the north and south foundations of heaven, or the north magnetic and south magnetic pole. Then they show the round land mass in the center, because the Bible speaks that in the beginning, before the flood, that the land masses were all one round mass, apparently. Then the flood came and broke up into the continents we have today, or so I've come to the conclusion. I don't know if that's right.
Possibly.
Yeah,
but
that is the big thing, really. If you went onto YouTube and just tapped in flat Earth and then searched on view counts, for all the flat Earth movies, every last one of them, barring a handful, they are all actively promoting the false model. All of them. Every last one of them is.
I know.
And the dome. Don't forget the dome.
That's what their role is. Their role is to promote the flat Earth, but that particular model. And a few people might stay a bit neutral on it, but the vast majority of them, those that are getting huge viewing figures, are all promoting it, and none of them look at anything else. I mean, Jainism, yet again, I keep saying to you, Laurie, they keep mysteriously finding these old ancient flat Earth maps, and lo and behold, Jainism was looking at the pyramids and for some obscure reason decided to start researching the housing estates around the pyramids, and lo and behold, he finds another flat Earth map. And then somebody rings in and asks about free and energy, and of course Bob's all embarrassed about it and said, "Oh yeah, he's great," and dropped the subject. They never talk about it, and I think that's their role. It's to promote the flat Earth, but the false model. They're happy for it to get out, so long as it's got a fucking ice wall and it's a big circle.
Exactly. Well, okay, so if that's the case, why would they be doing that? Because you would be going from one inescapable Earth to another inescapable Earth with a dome over the top of it, a circle with a dome over the top of it. And so you have these other people who say, oh, I'm sorry?
I said, then you got to ask yourself, how does a spinning dome connect to a non-spinning plane? You know, you have to answer that too. Not to mention, I should be able to go out on the ice ring, and literally if the dome is connecting to the plane, then I should be able to go out there and literally see stars at eye level. Or if I live in Australia, I should literally be able to get a shotgun or something and shoot a star, because the dome is going to curve down to the edge. Literally, the star should be right there. We've never seen any indication that there's even a curve to it yet. When we've watched the lightning sprites bounce off what I call the first firmament, about 100 to 120 miles up, we don't get any indications of roundness. The only indication that I see of roundness is possibly rainbows, because I can't explain them yet. I just know you need a concave mirror or something like that to reproduce them.
Well, I know months and months and months ago, I had a nasty little row with Rob Skiba about the dome versus perhaps a box or a square. I wasn't denying that there was a firmament. I wholeheartedly believe that there has to be something surrounding this realm, if you want,
right,
for lack of a better word. But is it a snow globe? And he literally used the word snow globe. Is it a Truman Show dome? I mean, on and on we went. And he was the one who threw up the term tabernacle. And I said, well, let's just go and look at Google images of a tabernacle. It's a square tent. It's flat on the top. It has square sides dropping down. So why are you promoting your Yahweh's terrarium when
because Isaiah 40:20.
Yeah, you made it up, or somebody's telling you to promote that. So, you know, when you add up all the rock stars of Flat Earth and their models and their maps, they are all promoting the same imagery. Why? And why? Not one of them, we've challenged them for months, not one of them has even asked to come on the show with a model or a map to or any evidence whatsoever of the dome, of the circular movement of the sun and moon and stars.
Well, they do show that one Antarctic video, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to say something about that. There is this alleged North Pole video where they're claiming there's this 24-hour sun and it's pretty much in the camera view the whole time for this 24-hour sun. Now, the problem is when I'm watching the bottom, I can see the sun hot spot going across the lake, so I can see exactly where the sun's at. That whole orbit ring is not more than 5 miles wide. There's no way that can be the North Pole 24-hour sun. It's fake. It has to be. The orbit is too small. There's just absolutely, because the highest the sun is supposed to move up is the Tropic of Cancer.
Right.
So
how can it be? And today I had a discussion. Well, both Lawrence and I did on Paul Michael Bale's page, because he challenged us as agents of the government. As always, we're agents because we are putting out disinfo with this diamond map. And of course, Lawrence and I both challenged him to debunk the map. And of course, you know, more obfuscation and sidestepping and so on. And so
they're never going to come up with that map. They can't. None of the airports are going to line up. You can't squash a globe flat and think it's just going to, it's going to spread out. Each of the ends of it is just going to bust on the end.
Right.
You're going to
Okay. So I said, somebody else came up with that they live in Alaska and that the sun rises from the northeast and sets in the northwest. And the day is, however many hours long. It wasn't 24 hours, but it was getting close. It was probably, 18 hours long based on the time that she said the sun rose and set. But that the sun was in the north of Alaska. Okay. So how can that possibly be if the highest latitude that the sun goes across Earth is at the Tropic of Cancer? So I said, well, given that information, perhaps there is either A, a second sun, or B, light of some sort coming in from the north that is not the sun. It is some other secondary source of light. Oh my God, you would have thought that I hit the Pope or something, because there can't be two suns. The Bible says only one sun. And, of course, I didn't get time because I got blocked, but I didn't get time to say, well, have you ever read Genesis? I mean, God created, if you're going to cite the Bible in Scripture, God created light 4 days before he created the sun and the moon and the stars. So the world operated. There were grasses growing, there were animals living, and everything before the sun was created. Go and read it, okay? We don't need the sun to have light on the earth. And so there you go. Somebody wants to argue biblical. Well, go read it. Read it again, and then read it again until you get it, what it says.
Yeah, well, I think time and date is giving an accurate representation of night and day, because the sunrise and sunsets match almost perfectly to where you actually live. And you're up near Florida somewhere, Laurie, and I'm up at over 50 degrees north, and sunrise and sunset is as time and date says it. So when you look at the distribution of sunlight, let me just bring that up on here. There we go. So we've got here side by side, we've got the winter solstice on the left and the summer solstice on the right, and one is the reverse image of the other. So on the left you've got the winter solstice, so you've got the big hump in the middle in light, and then you move it to June, and you've got a big hump of darkness in there. But in both cases, you've got the sun reverberating against what is the northern boundary on both of them, causing the areas to be totally in daylight for 24/7 on these solstices. Now, if you change that map and superimpose it on the diamond shape, I haven't got around to doing it yet, it would be more pronounced in that respect, and it would work even better, because if the sun is actually bouncing off, some kind of mirror effect caused by electromagnetism or whatever, then it is going to bounce on one side and reverberate off the other and light up a much larger area. And that's how I see it's happening. Because those are absolutely reverse mirror images. Now, you couldn't possibly get that sort of thing on the AE map because the southern hemisphere is so much bigger. The northern hemisphere is just the end.
The hump of light couldn't happen that same way. And it is real because people have verified time and date by looking at, and there are 3 layers of light at the edge of the hump. There's dark, which is in the center on the right one, and then there's twilight and whatever you call it, dusk and so on. Yeah. And I've watched it approach. I've had that map open while I'm sitting around doing stuff at night, and I've watched the daylight go west and the darkness creep in, and sure enough, I mean, the image that they're showing on that website definitely reflects the level of light or dark where I live. So
yes, so that the sun there's moving across from left to right, and it's creating this sine wave, and on the solstices it's bouncing off the north or the south depending on which one it is, and it's causing those places to get 24 hours of daylight, even though they are the furthest places away from the sun, because they've got this containment of the shape of this place we live on, and the shape of it is causing these larger areas to be lit up.
So there must be a supernatural mirror effect at the north and the south that does create the impression that the sun is coming in from the northeast and going out in the northwest.
I think
Alaska.
The 24-hour sun's there. I mean, some of it may well be, and I'm not saying this is true, and it's just a thought, it could well be a mirror image of the sun, giving the impression that the sun's there 24 hours a day. It's not the actual sun, it's the mirror image bit, because, if you look in a mirror, things look the same, don't they? You get a perfect mirror image, and the sun's coming out and giving the same effect.
Because it would be the same effect in the south, too, in the South Pole.
Yeah, they would, the other time of the year, yeah. But,
so, it's no big mystery. People act like, ooh, that video of the South Pole with the 24-hour sun. First of all, we don't have any verification of where that video was actually taken, although they do have some of the buildings that look like the buildings in some of the South stations. But I'm not going to argue with observable evidence. We just have to understand how that same evidence works, because we know that the Earth is not a globe. What they did is they took the flat Earth phenomenon, the observable sun, moon, and stars and everything, and made it work with ad hoc reverse engineered theories to make a globe. That's what they did. The Earth's always been flat. We don't have to explain why these things occur. They are occurring. We just have to explain why it isn't the globe and why it does work on the flat Earth, because it is flat.
Yeah, and Laurie, while you're there, I just want to correct Jeronism from his last show, where he was talking about there being 6 months of daylight in the south and 6 in the north, and then reversing round. It doesn't work like that. It's called gradual. So it will gradually progress to 24 hours of daylight, and then gradually progress the other way to 24 hours of darkness. It's not, 6 months of light, then it all gets turned off, and you get 6 months of darkness. That's ridiculous.
Right.
And I've been looking at these webcams, and there's lots of them, and there's people coming in and going. There's vehicles being moved. There's footprints. There's people walking around the buildings. They are real webcams, and to suggest that they're saying they're hoaxes. For those to be hoaxes, you'd have to have all these actors just pretending to walk in and out of these buildings, and that was their job.
Well, I mean, we do know we have actors walking in and out of NASA and getting paid, and it is their job. So some of it could be a little bit of play school acting, but at the same time.
Yeah, no, but the footage that you get from the webcams, it goes light and dark. So where would they be? Where could you simulate 24 hours of darkness and 24 hours of daylight? Apart from in those areas where it is.
You can't simulate that part. You could simulate the actors and the buildings and so on and so forth, but it would be pretty tough to simulate nature.
Yeah, I know. But they're still persisting with that.
Let me ask you this: when you realized that the azimuthal equidistant map was nothing more than a projection of the globe, and we do understand, for those of you who haven't really looked into this a whole lot, an azimuthal map just means that the center of the map is arbitrary. It doesn't have to be at the North Pole. It doesn't have to be at the South Pole as center. you can choose Dubai to be at the center of an azimuthal map, and everything radiates out from that center point, whatever point you determine. And the idea of an azimuthal map, the reason why they're created in the first place, is to be able to measure distances for travel and be able to plot travel from point A to point B, from center to wherever you're going, okay? So the same thing with the Gleason map. We finally figured out, didn't take that long, that it actually isn't even a representation of the globe for the purpose of being a map. It's a timekeeping device designed to move that little arm hand around and be able to determine what hour the arm would be pointing to at any given location on the spikes of that map. So when you determined that the azimuthal equidistant map didn't work, did you wonder, before you started looking into other maps and other models, did you wonder why that was considered the flat Earth map? Uh-oh, lost your sound again. Dang it.
Technology.
Such a good setup question, too. Okay, Thomas, you're probably going to have to go out and come back in again. That's probably the only way you're going to fix that. Can you hear me? Okay, there he goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
shame. You know, technology is so awesome until it's not.
That's what makes me laugh when people say, when I talk about this map, they say, yeah, but it's just a projection of the globe. They seem to forget that at one point in time there was no globe.
There was no globe.
They were flat Earth maps. That's what they had. And when they decided to perpetrate the globe hoax, they superimposed the flat Earth onto the globe. So to find out what the flat Earth map is, you look at the projections back the other way to a flat surface and see which one of those projections
closely mimics,
closely resemblance to reality, which is what I did. And I looked at all of them that I could find, and the diamond map was the best representation. And it also matches longitude and latitude perfectly. So that's why the other shows don't talk about us. You know,
right.
We
nobody wants to draw any attention to us.
Nobody ever wants to talk about what we're saying now.
Thomas, can you hear me now? Can we hear you now?
Yeah.
No.
Press on volume.
No, his phone mutes himself somehow, somewhere. Okay, he dropped out. He'll try to come back. Oh boy, it so disturbs the flow when you have these technological problems.
Do you think
he has spent a lot of time looking at and investigating free energy stuff, so I'd really like to ask him what he thinks, if he has anything that bothers him about that model.
What do you reckon? Because I was watching something the other day, Laurie, and I thought this is a bit of a curveball, because we got all these new presenters talking about flat Earth that I've never heard of before. Some of them are quite famous. There was some guy who was into health.
Oh, David Avocado Wolf.
Wow.
David Wolf, yeah. And you think, well, where the hell did he come from?
Yeah. Thomas.
Yeah.
You're back.
Can you see me or hear me?
Both.
No.
Carry on.
Oh, you can see me? Okay, finally. All right. You know, when I first got introduced to the Flat Earth movement, they kept telling me over and over, says, look, you're in the Flat Earth movement. You got to do your own research, test this stuff, test that stuff. But the whole time they're pumping out this information, they're telling me about this round map. And I'm not investigating anything. I'm watching this video in utter awe. I've just discovered the Earth was flat. I'm assuming, hey, he told me the truth about all this. Well, when he got to the map, clearly he must be telling the truth about that also.
Exactly.
And I'm kind of thinking, you lose your ability. It's like they tell you to research, but you don't do it. And I'm like, well, how can you guys be in the flat earth movement as long as you have, not you guys personally, but how can you be in the flat earth movement, like say, well, I don't want to mention any names, but certain superstars
you're
are in there.
certainly allowed to on this show.
There's certain people out there who's been in this flat earth game for years now, and I'm like, how have you not figured out the problem? Have you not one time looked up an airport flight? Because that's the first thing I did is I looked on my map. I picked 2 cities. Then I went to my airport online. I found the flight time. I found out exactly how many minutes, exactly how many miles, and it was just as easy as that. And as soon as you check the flight times, the moment you do that, that map's utterly destroyed. It doesn't match any of them. They got one flight line that goes from like Australia down to I think Africa or South America. I can't remember where it goes to. But they got this one line, and that's all they ever show in every one of their videos. See how this flight works perfect on the round map? Well, that's the only flight. All the other flights are wrong, every last one of them. But you get so caught up in this, you're like, well, I can believe this guy. I can take this guy's word for it. He just proved to be the earth was flat. He told me the biggest secret I've ever heard in life. So naturally, when Mark Sargent told me, and Eric Dubé and these guys, they all said it's a round map. Oh, I was up there defending it. I was like, oh, you ain't going to tell me it's not round. I just discovered the truth, and I'm ready to go to battle. Forget researching anything else. They're right, and if you say anything against them, you're the bad guy. So, yeah, in my group, I get a lot of guys that don't like to hear me talk about these guys, because I'm thinking there's no possible way you can be in the flat earth for 2 and 3 years and not know this map doesn't work. How could you not have a map after all this time?
You just did a Lawrence. That was pretty good. How can you not have looked at this? Okay, well, there you go. Talking about research, okay? If you don't verify what someone else tells you, okay? I just made a post about this today in my Facebook group. The difference between misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation is when you really just pass something on without verifying it yourself, and it's really not some mean-spirited attempt to fool people or to mislead people. Somewhat is, because you didn't verify first. It's like gossiping before you find out that so-and-so didn't actually get that divorce after all. But disinformation, on the other hand, is government or an agency or an organization that puts out misleading information on purpose to mislead, to get you to believe something, either manipulation or propaganda or indoctrination or something. Okay, so. But one of the
part of that
they use is to give you 90% truth. The part they want you to, they're going to have to put this out there anyway, so we might as well give it to them like this. But here's how we got to package it with this 10% that's bullshit or a lie, okay? And that's the map.
Right.
And that's the dome.
Yeah, let me just bring this up. So, because you were talking about that flight then, Tom, I've got that one here. Just a minute. Let me just bring that up. Hang on.
It's probably Santiago to Sydney.
I've got one here. Just a minute.
I know it was that another similar flight was when that woman was pregnant, had the baby on the plane, and they stopped off in Alaska.
Yeah. They were going to Hawaii, and Alaska was closer or something like that, or going to LA.
So anyway, so this is that flight there. The distance between Sydney and Santiago, 706 miles. That's the official flight distance. But the distance on this AE map, well, it's nearly 25,000 miles across. So I worked it out near as damn it that it was 16,400 miles if this AE map was correct, which is obviously is a joke. And it doesn't matter where you move Australia. You can move it closer, and then it would be out of sync with everything else. But when you look at that flight on the diamond map, you know, you have to use the portholes the same as you would on the globe. But the distance on the diamond map is the same as the globe. So there you have it. This map doesn't work for lots of stuff.
That's why he tries to. Yeah, I see what he's going with that. Yeah, he's wrong. So like,
well, I mean, we've called them out. We've called out all of these top name people, one show or another, over the last half year or better, and so far, and we've had open invitations for any of them to come on and call us liars and debunk us, but no one has. No one's taken us up on it, and the reason for that is because it's a slam dunk. They cannot defend. They cannot defend the AE map other than it's the map of the flat Earth. It just is.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't. I mean, it is if you're a cult. It is if you, you know, just repeat the same dogma because everybody else believes it. But just, you know, 99.9, all the people could believe something, and if it's not the truth, it's not true. It doesn't matter how many people believe it. So,
true.
okay,
Can you
so
still hear me?
Okay, so you found that the map didn't work. Then what did you do? What direction did you take to try to find a map? Because that's a natural next step for most people. We've always known that we live on a globe. So when the globe goes away, then you want to go, well, what the hell do I live on then? And what does it look like?
Well, actually, that part was easy for me because I was fully convinced of the round map until Stacy from Fred's book, I can't remember her last name. She always had filled me in and kept telling me the whole time she was in my group, you know, this map is wrong, stop, you know, bullshit, and, you know, give us the real map.
Oh, you're talking about Stacy Williams.
Yes.
Okay,
she's the one that actually...
She's an admin in our group, yeah.
Yeah, she's the one that actually introduced me to it, and, you know, I'm open to it, but I was thinking, come on, Mark Sargent's not wrong. He's been doing this. He knows what he's talking about. But she gave me the free energy videos, and I sat back and watched them, and then all of a sudden, perspective, that's what it is. No one's realizing the nature of perspective. When they're looking at these star fields, you know, in the time-lapse star fields, they're seeing in this circle, but no one's taken in consideration. The human eye is not, we don't have Superman eyes or a bionic eye. You know, this is all perspective. And when I went through Free Energy's videos, that was it. It was over with. He explained it perfectly to me. It clicked for me, and I've been promoting him ever since.
Well, shout out to Stacy for Stacy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I discovered it without her.
Because if somebody has something wrong, you know, she's like, you're doing it wrong. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You had one job, and that was to be a flat earther, and
you
can't get the freaking map right, and so on and so on.
Bulldog, but see, that's what you need. If you're guarding a junkyard, you don't want a Chihuahua, you know, you want a bulldog. Something's going to tear up something. And it's still, when I put out bad posts, she'll let me know. She will not hesitate to say, look, that's a stupid post.
Well, for a long time, there was sort of this, you know, we're the flat earth community, and we all need to be nice to each other, and we kumbaya, and, you know, we need to stick together because, you know, it's us against the world. And
that's kind of how I was. Yeah, I was thinking like the same way. That's how I was. Like, you know, well, even if they are wrong, you know, let's, you know, at least we have them on the flat earth side. But no, now I'm realizing that's not enough, because you're going from one lie to another. And
exactly.
The point is, we need to eliminate all these lies. That's why the world is messed up as it is. That's why.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like being an actor. It's like being an actor in a play, okay? And you're on this stage, and let's say this stage is decorated in, you know, 18th century Europe, all right? And you're acting like an 18th century European, and then the play's over, and then you just move to another stage, and now you're a Jetson, okay? The stage is all changed, and the props are all changed, and the actors are all the same. But now we're living in the Jetsons. Well, that to me is what this whole flat Earth community has done. And you can get mad at me for being the messenger, but I'm going to say what I feel, and I'm going to say what I think and what I observe. And what I'm observing is people have gone from one set of dogma and belief system, an indoctrinated belief system, to another indoctrinated belief system without doing the verification.
They recognized something was wrong with the first system, and they was looking for any kind of change that they could. And like, you're looking around, the world is so messed up, there's got to be something. And then as soon as somebody dumps this flat Earth in your lap, you're like, oh, there it is. I can believe everything it says now. But
right. Okay, so not to make free energy or whoever he or she is, because at this point I've never spoken to him or her or had anything but messages back and forth. I have invited free energy to come on the show, so has Lawrence, multiple times, and the answer has always been, I'm not ready, and I'll let you know when I'm ready. So I respect that line, and but Lawrence and I both agree on this, that there's some problems with this model that he has, because he's using the Mercator map, so to speak. Pretty much, right, Lawrence? It's the Mercator.
Yeah. So on his model, if you went up to 90 degrees north and went from one latitude side to the other, it's 25,000 miles across there, as it is at the equator. But it isn't. It's once you get close to the top, it's like 40 miles across and gets low. It goes to a singularity when you use official longitude and latitude data. But his model would work perfectly well with the diamond shape. But the problem is he's put out all these other videos, which would mean he'd have to go and modify his body of work, and that's probably the reason why he doesn't want to go there. I've asked him about it, and the only thing he's managed to suggest is that time and space, work differently as you move away from the equator, because obviously if it's only like 40 miles across at the top, then you'd have to be moving a whole lot slower to get across in the same time as you would at the equator.
Yes,
but I've asked him about it several times, and he can't address it. And longitude and latitude is correct. We can't argue with that because we all use it, and all the sat navigation systems, they use longitude and latitude. The sailors use it, and you can use it to get from A to B. So if longitude and latitude is correct, then the map is correct.
That's why one of the first questions I asked was about the northern and southern walls. How do you explain the poles and the magnetic pole? Because on the free energy, I've literally got two huge walls going down the whole sides of the Earth that will explain it. But I wouldn't know how to prove that without going up there and sending a drone or something, I suppose, and taking a picture.
His model's fine. I've got no problem with his model, and whether it's some kind of space loop or we enter into a fourth dimension, which obviously we can't get our heads around properly. I haven't got a problem with that because it's some divine creator who's made it, and who are we to, if you can make the Earth, create the Earth out of nothing, and fucking hell, you can create a fucking space loop, can't you? I mean,
basically what he's doing is you're applying the law.
When I talk about that, I'm in fantasy land when I talk about that. And even John Le Bon takes the piss out of it with his video. But the reality is that there is a space loop because the globe model works perfectly well. And for the globe to work well, there has to be a seamless passage from east to west because you can go either way.
Well, one of the things that they made up, or one of the very important things they made up to make the globe work as far as seamless travel in time and sun and moon and so on, is spinning. I mean, the spinning is time. I mean, isn't that what creates time? It takes 24.5 hours for the sun to rotate around the globe, or the globe to rotate around the sun, turning. Okay, so that's where they get the 24-hour day. And so all of the time zones all the way around represent that. And this spinning is what makes it happen because the sun's supposed to be stationary. Well, if you reverse that, then the sun is moving. So the sun has to move across the time zones, flattened out, okay? And the only way that that can happen on a flat Earth that without the circle map and the circling sun and moon is that it has to go seamlessly from left to right and or right to left and back again. And so, okay, if we're able to show this, this, and this, and he's able to show that, that, and that, at some point, given enough time and enough research, we should be able to combine these ideas. You know, I understand too that he wouldn't want to remake all of his videos, or if he wouldn't want to put a special notation on everything that he's done in the past. It has thousands or tens of thousands of views on it. But at some point, you have to be able to decide, is this about views? Is this about the truth? And, you know,
I think the diamond explains the stars. If you watch Free Energy's video about the stars, and he was saying that the concentration of stars is at the greatest on the equator, and then it all tapers down to actually form a diamond shape with the pole stars in the apexes. The the pole stars don't move. That's because they're right in the apexes of the diamond.
Well, and one of the things that he came up with that I thought was an excellent explanation to, you know, if you want to call it a reverse engineered ad hoc theory in itself, okay, I don't have a problem with that because that's what Newton did. But the sort of mirror ball, disco ball idea for the sun at the top of his model, it
didn't work out well with me either.
Well, it doesn't move, but one of the things that I thought he's onto something here is if the sun is not in and of itself a physical object, if it is a concentration of light that is being concentrated like from a magnifying glass through to make this pinpoint, so to speak, and I'm just paraphrasing, coming up with, you know, free flow thoughts here, then what could be happening outside of our realm, outside of the firmament, is what is directing this sun. So like you said at the beginning, outside of our realm, time is it's all in. Okay, so if the sun's over on the left side, it's also able to be on the right side. This is the part of the fourth dimension that most people don't have the ability to wrap their mind around.
This whole aspect of the time portion of it, I believe this is why a lot of the secret societies are worshiping that which they call Saturn, not to be confused with the planet Saturn, but the ancient god Saturn of Cronus, which is time. If you look, like, say, if you look on the foreheads of some of the Jewish priests, you'll see this little black cube on their forehead.
Right.
Another example of it is the Muslim in Mecca. You have the Kaaba cube, the Kaaba stone and this is all symbolic of the Saturn cube. Saturn is the Lord of time, and so from what I've been able to gather so far, it seems like one of the Gnostic teachings might be that we're literally trapped in time, that this is the only place where linear time actually exists. We're actually in a bubble, and this is not supposed to be the normal aspect of it. So but when I look at the ancient Egyptian pictures, another thing I noticed is when they're drawing the flat Earth, they'll draw the god down on the ground. His knee is up and his elbow is down, representing the valley of the mountains. Then you see the goddess, his mother, Nut, hovering over the top of her. But then on the outside, you also see various other deities and things holding strange electrical-looking devices and like that. So it's almost like we're inside of, this might even be a big giant machine, or there might be something to this whole Saturn cube thing. I mean, why did they pick the cube itself? So I was wondering if that might not have something to do with the secret of the flat Earth, because as you know, with like square, I follow with the free energies. If you notice, that rectangle is not exactly a square, and so now again we're getting into speculation here. But when I was listening to the stories of Captain Cook, he was talking about how he had gone to the North Pole, and he claimed at one point that he had been 3 days past the North Pole, but yet his compass still pointed north, and he couldn't explain this. Well, it's a little crazy theory, and there's not really much to support it. But I wondered if maybe there was a whole other rectangle on top of us with a whole other sun going down it. Because if you remember back to the stories of the frost giants who were from the north, and some of the gods they lived in the far north. Satan said he will ascend, take his seat in the north, and all these references to the north. I almost wondered if Captain Cook had maybe gone through a mountain chain or something and came out on the other side with a whole nother ocean. I know it's a lot of speculation.
No, well, okay, add to that thought, what if, and many people have speculated this, that the compass is not actually pointing north, it's pointing anti-south. So you could go past the North Pole as far as you want, it's still pointing anti-south.
And another problem I kind of have with, even though I love Free Energy's model, when you go to his North Pole and the South Pole, it's an entire wall, an entire magnetic wall. And I'm thinking, if this is a giant magnet and it's pulling my compass, then it would have to be that the closer I got to that, I should notice a huge difference in the pull. Even if I was to fly from, say, where I'm from, Ohio, and I was to fly down to South America, the pull, I should be able to feel a visible difference in the pull. The closer you get to that wall, it should pretty much, if you're in a metal ship, it should just suck it right out of the ocean and stick right to the side of it.
Well, think about this then. Okay, and this is what Lawrence and I have tried to promote Free Energy to do, and that is to take the diamond map. Now that we know that mathematically and with all observable data fits this Collignon diamond-shaped map, take that map and make a model out of it, because then you wouldn't have that entire long, flat, straight wall. It would come to a point.
Right, that's kind of hard to justify. I mean, two huge walls. I mean, it almost makes sense, because I'm thinking, well, if I'm in a square, a cube, well, and they're worshiping the Saturn cube, well, then maybe I've got walls in the side, and maybe just my east and west are, the portal links, and north and south, wouldn't be. So when you thought you were, no, that doesn't make sense either. I don't know.
Okay, look at it this way. Okay, we have 2 or 3 different issues we're trying to transpose over one another here. First of all, we have the flat plane topography map. Okay, for lack of any other word. Okay, let's say that's the diamond, for lack of any other map been able to measure that works. Then trying to utilize that map into a model, then you have to take all the other observations, in other words, what's going on overhead. Okay?
Right.
But with Free Energy's rectangle, the only way that I could see where that would work would be time is moving through it, and as one end goes away, the other end is coming in. You see what I'm saying?
You only live in
that would be
one
time. In other words, you can't travel back in time, and you can't travel too far into the future, other than the amount of speed that we can attain with a plane so far, which is our fastest vehicle.
That's idea. The Emerald Tablets of Hermes or Thoth talk about that, where it says that time does not move, but ye move through time.
Right.
Telling you that perhaps at one point in time the sun is at point A, say, and the stars are at point B, and they do, not that they move, but you move through another point in time, and at this point in time, that's not where they're at. They're now at a different point. You know, we perceive this as a a line going from one linear moment to the next.
Right,
but
which is why they possibly came up with the idea of spin, the Earth spinning for time.
Right. So the time problem, that would kind of indicate that there's no movement at all, that there is no orbiting sun, there is no orbiting or stars going from one point to another. It's just different frames in time, and you're traveling as a spirit through body after body. Even though you think you're in the same body that you were born in, you're literally going from a different body to every single
Every
moment.
time you wake up, you're in a different meat suit. And it's a day older. That's why we have to sleep, gosh darn it. Every day they take away your old meat suit and they put you in a new one.
Yeah.
So what is that sound in the background that's kind of annoying me?
If it's coming from me, I have a guy who
decided to trim his trees or something?
Yes, that's me then, yes.
Of course.
Yeah, he just has to do this right now. Chris.
Okay.
Chris, close that window in that window. Come on, lazy girl.
Okay, so here we go. So anyway, I'm going to mute you for a second. I hope it doesn't mess up your sound. Okay, so Lawrence, have you asked Free Energy to? I mean, he's doing computer simulations, right? So have you asked him to try to simulate his model ideas on the diamond map?
Well, yeah, I've told him that is analysis of how the stars work with the big concentration across the equator and progressively less till it gets to like a single star, the North and South Pole stars. That would work perfectly in the diamond model. In fact, the diamond model is even perfect for magnetic north because diamond, and that's when the magnetic north would point.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a real good skill.
The official flat Earth model has the North Pole with a big pile of molten metal under the surface or something. Is why all the compasses point to north, being there. But we know that the North Pole is not in the center of the Earth. That's just part of their false model.
Well, I mean, what is that called? Declination or something, where even distances at the north. Whether it be on the AE map or on the globe, because obviously everybody will tell you the AE map works perfectly for the northern hemisphere. Maybe the southern hemisphere just isn't what we think it is.
Well, actually, it doesn't work perfect. If you look on the north, if you pay attention to what they did, they actually, just like the bottom of the southern hemisphere is stretched out, the northern hemisphere is crushed in. So what they're representing is in space, like I'm saying, if I was
area.
the United States is way smaller on the flat Earth map because all the north is pinched together, so that it can all come together. All the longitude lines squish everything together. So the width of the United States is actually wider than what they're claiming, and the distance at the bottom is actually closer.
Okay, so what about the people who say, well, latitude and longitude aren't really real. They're just arbitrary drawing, lines on a map for us to use for navigation and location and so on and so forth, that they really aren't real. So like the UN map, for example, has the spokes of the wheel. I'm not even sure. I've never even counted them to see. I know there's supposed to be like 33
chambers, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But the amount of longitude lines, is that correct on that?
I don't think it is. I haven't personally looked.
It seems like there's less than there should be, but
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. I know I didn't count them. But let's just speculate on this, because, I'm all about speculation, because as long as you announce that you're speculating, because look, I mean, we have so much to speculate about. We just threw out our entire education, our entire indoctrination, and our entire worldview up until the time that we became a flat earther, and all of a sudden now everything's new again. So
Yeah.
if you start from scratch and start to reinvestigate everything,
You start with theories and hypothesis and work from there.
right? You collect information by which you can form a hypothesis, and when you start to look at the speculation part of why would they do this, who started this idea, when did it come about, how long have they been infiltrating the information data interwebs, everything with all of this stuff, so that we would find it. Oh, looky here, because there is no such thing as coincidences, and we know that. But what are the chances of, we're in 2016, and all of a sudden this map that is 1,000 years old just shows up, and then somebody says, oh, well, that's because some flat earther researcher dug it up. It's been sitting there all this time waiting for somebody to find it. Okay, whatever. All right, I'm not going to argue that that's not a possibility. And then we have the Gleason map, and then we have, this is the one with a whole bunch more continents on it. Oh, just happens to show up after people start talking about infinite plane and more ponds. Each one of these groups of belief systems, these camps, as we call them, each have their own gatekeeper, their own guru, their own set of dogma for their following. And you may skip around from one camp to the next from the point of introduction to the flat earth. If something captures you, though, you're going to probably just stay with that because this makes sense. This frees me. I feel like I'm really found myself when I found this model. Okay, fine, so be it. But for people to say that this isn't possibly a psyop that was orchestrated by the government and her agencies, to wake us up to the fact that, well, we really can't hide this stuff anymore, so let's just go ahead and bring it in. And maybe the treaty that they signed with the fallen angels or the aliens or whichever camp you're with on that belief system is running out, and so maybe the giants that are down underneath the ground in the dumb tunnels that eat live people have decided they're going to come topside now, and the game is up. And so, yeah, you could speculate till the cows come home, but if you don't have anything to back up your speculation, then that's all you're doing. You're spinning fantasy. Okay, that's where satellites came from. Arthur C. Clarke created satellites for a science fiction show, and now we have satellites. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did these UN map get put out for us to find? I mean, it's been there all along. It's not new. It's been there since what, 1945?
Yeah. I seen the Admiral Byrd video.
We're told, aren't we? You get into flat Earth and you think, well, this is brilliant. This is, and you look at the information that's out there, and as you were saying yourself, Tom, you're not expecting people to be giving you going from one big lie to another. So the thing about satellites is, when you've got a seamless passage from one side to the other, then if machines can fly across and remain in orbit if they get high enough, then satellites would actually work on the flat Earth because you've got the seamless passage from one side to the other. So they could, in effect, orbit. They'd be just going across. So there may well could be satellites. You know, we're all told that satellites are a hoax. There could be satellites out there. I don't know, but I'm not dismissing satellites anymore, because you need to look at everything that we've been told. You get into flat Earth, everything, all space travel's fake. Oh, I think that probably still is. But satellites could well be real. If they can get a few hundred miles up and remain in orbit, then they can keep going across the Earth.
Well, but let's restate that just for those who are like, orbit. Okay, the if they could defy what we call gravity, which is density. Okay, let's say this satellite is a helium balloon that is in the upper atmosphere. Okay, and it's just going east to west, just like everything else does, and it's going to be in the same time loop that everything else is, right? If it's geostationary, it's going to keep moving along with the same sort of idea that the sun and the moon do on the time and date
exactly. Yeah.
thing. Okay,
Well, you know,
and they could just be solar-powered drones. Go ahead, Tom.
what I was going to say is Tesla told us that Einstein was absolutely incorrect about the universe being based on gravity. Tesla believed it was vibration and energy, and it was basically based on electricity. With this in mind, I really don't have a problem if we have a container and it's filled with electromagnetic fields. I don't have a problem with a light object floating on that along the magnetic streams if it's of the, say, reverse polarity. So yeah, if you know certain magnetic lines are going certain distances,
Right.
and if it's a positive line and you put something negative on, or no, that would have to be positive, because positive repels negative, negative.
Right.
Right. So it's very possible, and the sun and the moon could be operating the same way. It could be literally traveling along magnetic lines and just being pulled by the magnetism. So yeah, after all these years,
that's speculation, but at the same time, it has its own way of making sense. Okay, so you take speculation like that and say, what if? Okay, what if we thought of it this way? And then, oh no, that doesn't work. That tip breaks down. Okay, let's think of it that way. That's one of the things that's not happening in the flat Earth community. There are very few people actually doing thinking and research. Most people are following along with that thinking and research and picking the thing that makes the most sense to them. And
well, that's what they were taught in school. They weren't taught to critically think. They were taught read, absorb, memorize, reabsorb, and memorize. And that's what they're doing when they're coming to the flat Earth. We're telling them research, but they're watching, absorbing, and recalling it the same way you did back when they told you it was a ball in school. You're still not using your critical thinking ability.
Right. So if you're really good at memorizing and reciting, because you were in school, some people are just really good at that. They can memorize and then they can recite. Okay, that immediately brings up a Mark Sargent or an Eric Dubay to me, because they're smooth. They repeat their story the same way each time. You know, their talking points are always just flawlessly, and one thing to the next. This is just too funny. The guy decides to trim all the trees in the neighborhood the minute you get on Hangout.
Yeah, I live in an old people's neighborhood, and they all cut their grass and do everything on Sundays, and they're like, oh my God.
Okay, so just because someone sounds really smooth in their delivery and very practiced and very, thoughts organized, and they seem like they're speaking extemporaneously, meaning if you ask them a question, well, that little trigger is programmed to respond with this canned response. It's no different than a politician or a celebrity type or whatever. You ask a doctor a question about your health, like let's say, what disease do I have, doctor? And they'll say, well, you have blah blah disease, and then there they go. They're just going to start filling out the textbook explanation for what that is. And they sound so much smarter than you because they were able to do that. That
Yeah,
you
that
give
you
them all
automatically
this authority.
exactly. And I do the same thing when I was in college. I would look through my physics book, and it was like I was just looking at, what is this? A bunch of scribbles, you know? And all I could do was just assume whatever my professor told me. That's right. I can't figure this out for the life of me. So if he says that's what it is, and that's just what it is, you know. But again, it's the same thing. Even with the mathematics, we're never taught critical thinking. And then when we come into the flat Earth movement, just like me, I think I watched that flat Earth clues probably 15, 20 times. And literally did exactly what I did back in school. Watch, memorize, memorize every single detail. Don't critically analyze it, memorize it. And then I can go tell it to everyone else. And then all of a sudden I'm getting shot down left and right. I'm going into these globe Earth versus flat Earth groups, and these guys are just crushing me. I'm like, that's not possible, you know?
Well, look at Lawrence. Lawrence actually used to go out on speaking tours, and part of his presentation was flat Earth clues. I mean, he actually even helped Mark Sargent with some of the information for flat Earth clues, and had to like take it all back and say, no, this is rubbish, as he called it, because he went back and started listening to them again with fresh eyes, with questioning. And I watched I watched all of them one time. I never watched the combination one, but I watched the individual ones. You first go to one and the two, and then there has been no more since. There's number 13 or something. And the same thing with Dubé. You know, Dubé hasn't put out anything new. He just repackages and regurgitates.
Same thing over and over.
Powerland never had anything to put out at all once he came out with his More Land thing. Okay.
Yeah, I knew he was going to blow up, but no, he didn't, and I never understood that.
Because he's not believable. People started seeing too many signs of masonry and symbols and all that kind of crap, and he shot himself in the foot with all that. Whether he's real or not is irrelevant at this point.
Well, now, Mark Sargent doesn't really get a very big audience right now. I'm looking at his viewing things. But Dubé and Math Powell, they still get quite big hits on any videos that they come out. So they are really like cult figures because people just hang on to them. You know, we put Math Powell on the show and we got like 15,000 views. So, but he didn't have anything to say constructively about flat Earth research whatsoever. He just made up a story saying something about the kids were asking the university lecturer in Tasmania about the flat Earth, and then they positioned a warship off the coast of Tasmania because they were worried about them rioting about it. And he just made the whole fucking load up.
Well, I forgot.
This guy expects to be taken seriously when he just makes stuff up.
For days after that, we both looked at the news, all over Google, all over everywhere, trying to find any story we could about this teacher and about these students and about Tasmania or wherever the hell it was, and the warship, and nothing. There was nothing, and because he made it all up. And he's never been able to come up with the proof of the story that he made up in the beginning. So, I don't care about that kind of thing, but the thing that has always annoyed me since I got involved in this thing was everybody talks about, no, we don't want any leaders. We want to all be free and individual to come up with our own belief system and everything else. And then a whole big percentage of people just turn around and follow these cult leaders to begin with because they seem like they know what they're talking about and what they're doing, and they were here in it before I was, so that somehow makes them authorities.
Well, here's another problem that I've noticed, especially with my group, is when you're trying to introduce someone to the flat Earth, I like to be able to present, one single video or something, and say, here, watch this, this will explain it. And that's why the flat Earth clues and Eric Dubay stuff still has so much control and power right now, is because there's nobody on the square Earth or the diamond Earth that are putting out full informational videos. You know, if somebody says, okay, you want to prove the flat Earth to me, you know, show me a video, let me see something. Well, the only thing I can show them is a round map video. And that's why I was really,
right.
really...
Or you'll find something that has a lot of good stuff in it, and you go, oh, this is good, all this is good, and then all of a sudden you hear that game show loser noise, that wah, 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 because there came the dome, or there came the flat Earth circle map, and it's like, damn, that just screwed that thing up. And I tell people, if I go on their videos, in their comments and say, could you please maybe consider making one of these without that circle map in it, or AE map in it, and it's like, rah! You know, they get all mad and say, you know, what's the matter with you? Can't you ever say anything constructive? Like,
if you try to point out
damned if you do, don't.
Yeah, if you try to point out any errors on their map, they won't check it. Even if you present them with absolute proof, hey, this is wrong, they will not
Believe
even...
me, Lawrence has called out all kinds of video makers who go, oh, I'm on it. These video makers, they'll say, here's my newest production. You know, you spend the first 3 minutes watching their, you know, big introductory opening thing, and you just scan, trying to get to the meat of the thing, and then it's like, wah, 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 there it goes again, that silly little map and the sun and the moon going around in a circle. And
that just makes me so sick every time I see that, because I see so many good videos out there, and I want to share them in my group. Like I did that the other day. I shared a real good video, excellent. Then all of a sudden they bring out this round map, and I'm like, I want people to get this information, but the only way I can give it to them is if I put this turd in the punch bowl, you know? Like, here's this delicious punch, but I have to drop it. Yeah, oh my God.
Well, okay, so I'm sure that there's people listening right now. Well, let's see your model. Let's see your big video with your, you know, map and model in it. And it's like, this is the only medium that we have. We're not big-time video makers. We're you know, we're researchers, and we're talkers, and we're trying to, you know, express our way of looking at things, and for people to listen to and take with them on their own research journey. But for us to come up with a map and a model would be speculation, and it would also be hold a certain amount of responsibility with it, that we weren't passing on disinformation to anyone. So I'm actually not willing to put my, you know, neck on the chopping block for making a map and model that tries to include everything, because I haven't finished the research yet. But you know what? I don't have a problem with people putting out research and videos that show some research that they have done. But don't call yourself a flat Earth video guru if you're just regurgitating and repackaging the same stuff over and over without adding anything new to it, and or checking the information that you're regurgitating.
Right. That was my biggest mistake. As soon as I got into flat Earth movement, like I said, that lack of critical thinking and just accepting what someone else says. They were right about
that's what got me at the start, you see. But when I was into flat Earth about a year or so before everybody else, or before there was a big rush on my Facebook pages with all my friends, and I was getting called out by this woman in Australia, Santiago Chile flight, because she'd done it, and she wasn't having it. It can't be flat Earth, because it doesn't fit your model. And we're all looking, including me, we're all looking to make excuses for the map and saying these flights were hoaxes and stuff like that. And I did try and book a flight once. I'll go through the motions, and my computer was playing up at the time. I probably use that as an excuse to say no, it's not real. But what's he's done it? That Australian truth seeker, he's been and done it, and John LeBon's done
Max Egan.
Yeah, he's done the flight, and John LeBon's done the flight from Sydney to Johannesburg. So, The flights are real, and the distance is what they say it is. It's just over 7,000 miles. But that's the problem, because you're getting all these new people coming in, and the information flows that come out. They go on YouTube, and 95 times out of 100, they're going to be looking at somebody putting out disinformation, and then they'll go and repackage it themselves to tell all their friends with the video without actually checking it out, because they believe they were told the truth in the first place. Because God, they were telling us about the flat Earth. They're not going to lie to us about it. It makes sense. And that's what they do. And then you look at it, and so I look at the new video makers, and they're all coming up with these circular Earths and the circular suns and a big ice wall, and I think, oh, for fuck's sake, not again.
And compared to when you got in, and then compared to when I got in, which is about a year and a quarter ago already, the amount of information, is unbelievable compared to when I got in. The amount of misinformation is absolutely over the wall. The amount of disinformation, which is on purpose wrong,
concave Earth.
No, even just on flat Earth stuff. Okay, the amount of disinformation, meaning it was movement to begin with into the community by these early people, whether they did it on purpose or they didn't. I'm not going to even accuse anymore, because I don't have a clue and I don't care. But when you get to the point where you have somebody like me who has a certain following because of being a truther for a while, and then I start talking about flat Earth, and so people respect me, and they say, well, I'm going to go check this out, because Lori usually, she doesn't post weird crap. I mean, she checks it out first. So then they go looking, only now the fruit punch bowl they have to look into has a whole bunch of turds in it. And they're like sifting through turds going, what's the point here? This is all weird crap. And then you go, well, this guy's good, but don't listen to that part. And then this guy, he knows what he's talking about, but disregard the thing. And
I do to my posts on the Facebook. I catch myself doing that all the time. Watch this video, but disregard the map. Whoa! I just destroyed everything. All right.
I know, everything's freaky, because when Laurie and myself kicked this show off 6 months ago, whenever it was,
I contacted
quite a few people, well, not that many, who I thought would be good speakers, and one of them was Tiger Dan, so luckily he didn't come on. And the Morgal came on, but little did I know, the Morgal was fucking indoctrinated in Robotham and the North Pole in the centre. He'd fully bought into that model, and there was no way he was going to budge. And I spent many weeks just arguing the toss with John, and he was no. And we had to split up in the end, because he's good at debunking the globe, but he's got his preferred model. He's fallen into line with the rest of them. They're all falling into line. And if you look at the makeup of people who are actually taking an interest in flat Earth, you've got the people who, to me, are obviously agents of some sort or under some kind of mind control. And then you've got these people come in who are quite fanatical about it, and I would term them as what you call useful idiots. And these people get corralled into groups and brought under the wing of some of the bigger names in flat Earth, so that they don't step out of line too much. And then you get the complete crackpots coming out with all sorts of stuff that they're just making up and that makes no sense at all.
And then you have the silent majority of people who truly are aware that the Earth is flat, and they truly are trying to find out as much information as they can, but you don't hear anything from them. You don't know anything about them. They just quietly are observing, okay? And so to those people, you know what you're doing. At least you're not passing on misinformation or disinformation. And I commend you for taking the time to look into it and to do the research. And if you're a quiet type, fine. If it's not your shtick to go out and try to wake up the world, fine. It's really not my shtick either. Neither Lawrence or I are on a mission to wake up the world. What our mission is to get to the truth and then use that truth to try to improve the world by having a humanity that understands reality and isn't walking around being traumatized with lies.
Yeah, and they have brought in. This video came out last week where we were just talking about it when you got cut off, Tom. They brought this video out last week and it was very professionally put together, but it was a bit, the spiritual and happy clappy and let's all stick together. But yeah, this guy called David Wolf on, who's a vegan and health freak and knows all sorts of things about, how the body works and what food's good for you and stuff like that. It was seemed quite genuine, but it's like they came out of nowhere because they haven't produced nothing, so they've become flat earthers overnight, and they put out, first thing they do is a very professional put together video at a conference, and I'm thinking conference. And then you've got this European conference coming out in July in Holland, put together by that French sounding guy who I don't trust for 1 minute, and one of the headline speakers there is Lord Stephen Christ about the flat Earth, and you think, what is going on?
Turd in the punch bowl. Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, so
what is all that
at some point, Lawrence, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. At some point, this whole flat Earth thing is going to go mainstream. And when it does, it's going to not be because we made an impact with our critical mass going viral, whatever. We finally figured out over time that in this world of the interwebs, nothing goes viral unless they decide it does, because there's always money attached to it. There's always somebody that's going to make a killing off of whatever the hell it is that goes viral, okay? I just got chewed up and spit out a couple weeks ago or a week or so ago about the Chewbacca lady. Her video went, do you know what I'm talking about, Lawrence?
Chewbacca.
On Star Wars, Chewbacca?
Oh, yeah.
The hairy alien? Okay. This lady bought this mask and was, I guess, driving around in her car and made a video or something of her with this Chewbacca mask on and laugh. And apparently it went viral because some little boy who was autistic saw it and laughed for the first time in like 6 years or something. Okay. So it ended up on Good Morning America and blah, blah, blah. And it's like overnight 70-something million people saw this video. Okay. So I said, well, wonder what they were distracting us from with that. And of course, I got all chewed up because, don't you ever have any fun? Don't you ever just laugh? Don't you ever just, say, hell yes, I do. But I'm savvy enough now at this point where when I see something like that make a big hit, like a couple years ago when everybody was dumping buckets of ice on their head, okay, who does that? And it was all about ALS and getting a cure for ALS and everything else. And then come to find out, all these people didn't even realize that like 20% of the money that gets donated to ALS actually ends up going towards research or finding a cure or whatever. And so I've gotten to the point where if something's gone viral, I'm pretty much just going to ignore it because it's a distraction, or it's actually the Chewbacca mask lady. Some store, I guess it was Kohl's or somewhere, was selling these things, and they were selling out, and everybody had to have one, and it was making millions of dollars. And I'm like, see, that's right there. That's what I'm talking about. And so for flat Earth to go viral, okay, when they said, oh, David Avocado Wolf is now a flat earther and he's listened to this conference and everything. And I said, are we going to have a ticker tape parade and have confetti? I mean, what difference does it make that David Avocado Wolf has become a flat earther? Listen to the dogma that he's regurgitating in his video, which is the same stuff that B.O.B. came out with, and blah, 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 and Eric Dubay, and Mark Sargent, and Clues, and Domes, and come on, okay? So I'm sorry if I'm underwhelmed when some celebrity, I mean, I'm so anti-celebrity at this point, that when a celebrity comes out as a flat earther, it matters not to me, because I know what's going to happen. When this thing does go viral and it goes on the news, you're going to have your deGrasse Tyson and, astrophysicist whoever's are going to just obliterate this circle map. I mean, it's just going to be humiliating, okay? And those of us who didn't sign on to it are going to be lumped into that category because we're flat earthers, and we're going to be going, no, not all of us believe in that, map and model.
That's exactly the problem, Laurie, because the globe model does work. I mean, to put this globe model together, I mean, it's a work of art, isn't it, the globe? To actually change the Earth from something it isn't to a fictitious globe that works pretty much perfectly, because they've made all the science.
And flying through space with the greatest of ease.
Yeah.
Never running into each other, and stars never moving, star constellations never moving in thousands of years, and on and on and on.
So they get Mark Sargent on a national debate with deGrasse Tyson, and he just pulls, totally dismantles all of Sargent's theories, and of course the whole movement's a laughing stock. You put that on national TV, then everybody would think the flat Earth is a joke, because I'm sure.
Or
he's already
speculate a little bit more and say, what if the chosen new truth is we were fooling you about the Earth being a ball. Most of us had no idea. It's always been a ball for as long as we've been alive, and so we just were going with it because we believed it too. But actually, after all, it's not a ball. It's this flat circle with the dome over the top of it. Okay, and we are in prison, and we're in prison with these demons, and we've been trying to get along with them for thousands of years, and that's why we've had to have these secret societies, so that we had certain people who passed down this information from one century to the next to make sure that we stayed in harmony with these alien, extraterrestrial, fallen Earth, whatever the story, okay? That's possible too. In which case you'll never talk anybody out of the new model, because then they will manipulate. Talk about ad hoc reverse engineered theories. They will manipulate these flight times and these flight distances and change the map. Oh, here's the new map. We've been lying to you about the map, and alter everything about the map. That's probably what this Mandela effect is all about, being brought in at the same time as flat Earth. I mean, that's not suspicious at all, is it?
Absolutely, it is.
Most people's concepts of where places are in the world is pretty poor, because as that woman from South Carolina, Miss Dumbass of South Carolina, who was asked that most Americans can't find America on the map. Most people haven't got a clue where different countries are in the world, so they could move them all about and they'd be clueless.
Well, most Americans, I'm sorry, but most Americans don't even know where most states are. I mean, they kind of do in general. They know if they're in the east or the west or the northwest or whatever, but they don't know the order or what side. If you showed them a little picture of that shaped, and they say, what state is that? And I was like, is that Rhode Island? I don't know. Okay, so I mean, I'm sorry. I am guilty as anybody of not knowing everything, okay? And I wouldn't ever pretend to know everything. But of the things that I do know, that I have researched, I don't stop when something bangs up against my head and doesn't sound like something I want to believe, so I don't believe it, okay? It's like people with this Mandela thing, okay? I kind of have a little bit of a memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison, but could I like get up on a witness stand in a courtroom and say somebody's life depended on whether I remembered it right or not? No, sorry. And the same way with whether it was Jif or Jiffy peanut butter, or whether it was Luke, I am your father, or no, I am your father. I mean, I can't testify to it. Things are seeming a little strange, but that could just as easily be manipulated as a form of hypnotrance. And if you change enough things, somebody said, "Oh my gosh, South America moved." I'm like, what are you talking about? South America moved? Oh, the entire continent of South America moved east like a whole bunch. I remember South America used to be right underneath the United States, just straight down. Here's the United States, here's the Yucatan Peninsula, and it was just straight down. And like the west coast of the United States was pretty close to the west coast of South America. And I'm like, you mean like on the longitude line? Yeah. And now you go look at the map and you'll see that South America's shifted way east. And, it's like even now with the side of it is like even now with the East Coast. So I thought, you know what? I have an old Grolier atlas that I've had on my shelf for probably 30 years. I'm going to go get that thing and I'm going to go see the map of the world, if this lines up or not, because I know this map, this Grolier atlas has been in my possession my whole life, or 30 years. So I go get it. Sure enough, it looks just like it does now. It's way shifted over. And I'm thinking, I kind of remember it seemed like it was straight down too, but what map was I looking at when I was a kid? I was looking at the Mercator map that they had on, or no, what was that? Peter's projection. Maybe.
Peter's projection, yeah.
And so could I testify that they moved the entire continent of South America over to the east, like 4 longitude lines? I don't know. No, I don't think I could.
When that first come out, because I don't normally follow those things either, but when they threw the Bible verse out at me, that kind of got me, because there was a verse in there that says, I had thought that it said, "And the lion shall lie with the lamb," in Psalms. And when I went and looked it up, now it says, "The wolf shall lie with the lamb."
Right.
And so, but the problem is, it's just like you said, could I testify in court that it was the lion?
Well, it's the same thing with wineskins and bottles, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have bottles in biblical days that I remember, but they would have had clay-type bottles. Maybe they didn't have glass ones. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. I'm not an anthropologist or archaeologist or whatever. So, but I looked it up, and in the Bible that I have, it says wineskins. And in the Bible that the guy was showing on the video I was watching, his said bottles, and he was sure and be damned, it said wineskins. Now, are we talking about the same version, the same, year of printing, blah, blah, blah? I don't know. But either they're trying to screw with us, in which case it's working, okay, because people are really
they're
into this Mandela effect, and a whole bunch of flat earthers went right for it. And not that it, like I'm saying, not that it is or isn't true. I have noticed some things that are off. Like I do remember Interview with a Vampire, and now there's an Interview with the Vampire. I do remember that. I remember remarking on, A seems like a kind of an odd title instead of the. So there's a reason why it's viral right now. I don't know what the reason is, but it could be a distraction. It could be that they're using it to get us to question our memory. What do we remember? I mean, is it possible that one day they'll just say, well, the Earth's always been flat? What do you mean? There never was a ball. There never was a globe. All those globes were just from, a movie that was a big movie back in the day or something. Okay. I don't know. I mean, can you go around like Santa Claus and gather up all the globes in everybody's living room and house and office overnight, and then suddenly, I don't know what the purpose of it is, but there is a specific lady who started it. Fiore somebody, Bloom, for some name, Brom, I can't remember. It's probably a Mandela effect.
Yeah, there's obviously a plan afoot. I mean, we've had Obama mentioning flat Earth 4 or 5 times, and deGrasse Tyson saying the Earth, he didn't mean it, but he said the Earth was flat on a video that came out this week.
And the doctor that said it in a video twice in one video a week ago.
It's progressively finding its way more and more into mainstream, drip, and obviously at some point they're going to introduce some really big names, maybe, and get them involved with it to foist upon as a false model, which,
Well, I mean, Lawrence, it could easily be that the flat Earth is the introduction to the New World Order. Maybe they're going to use it to say, well, the Earth is not as big as we said it was. It's not flying through space. We're here. We're trapped. We have overlords, and they control us. So, in order to maintain our own human control over our plane, we have to all band together with the one world order. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think if we did make some announcement telling everybody we're on a flat Earth, I think a lot of people are going to freak out. I mean, it's just going to be too much for some people, isn't it? You've got some globers who are got dedicated channels just to debunk the, and they're obviously not looking at the information we're putting out. That guy called Five Red Pears, he keeps putting video after video, and I just keep sending him a little message saying, because he does these little pencil sketches for stuff, and he captures it on his laptop. So can you just draw me a little sketch, show me a plane flying around the Earth, circumnavigating the Earth, remaining level at all times, because that's what happens in real life. And he don't like it. He just gets very upset.
Well, I guess I can understand that, but it seems we lost Thomas again. He must have dropped out, or maybe he's overheating or something.
Yeah, and then you've got all these other cults springing up everywhere. You've got these like gangs of people now who hang out together on the same hangouts, the same sort of groups of people, but they don't really talk about anything in particular. They go off on rants about this, that, and the other, anything really. It's their mates. They're having a hangout with their mates, and the common interest is the flat Earth, but
right, because that's how they met, was through flat Earth. Well, so what about the petition that's being circulated this week? The petition to the White House with the questions that they insist that Obama answer. Have you read the petition?
I had a brief look at it. Yeah, somebody sent it to me, but I didn't like some of the questions, so I just took my name off the list.
I've never, well, not never, for a long time, I've discontinued being an advocate for petitions, especially to the White House, because none of them ever seem to get anywhere. And as far as I am, they all go through that, what is it, change.org or something, which is an Obama subgroup. And, I think they're just using it to collect metadata. But I guess there's people who would say, well, if you don't ever try, you won't ever get anywhere. You got to at least try. So I don't know.
Yeah. And one of the guys on our Facebook page, though, he's got an app for his iPhone where you can actually take the bearings on the sun, and it's got all
Yeah,
sorts
I
of.
saw that. It's got a theodolite app
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, for $9. So that looks, it's cheaper than buying a compass. So it'd be great if other people can check out our page and get that link and get the app. And you don't have to wait until the summer solstice. You can do it now. Start taking some bearings on the sun and start, feeding the information in so that, we can get some bearings on the sun. Because I'm fascinated to know what happens with the midnight sun in the north, because we can actually go, to the north of Sweden or Finland and see the midnight sun.
Well, yeah, and
And I
I
want
want
to
to
see
see what direction it's being viewed from.
Yeah.
I mean, if the sun is north of the highest known location for people, especially Alaska, Sweden, Canada, if the sun is coming in from the northeast, from those locations, then that slaps the hell out of the Tropic of Cancer location, or it's either A, being reflected, or B, there's a second light source. I mean, what else answers can there be?
That's it. But I think it's probably been
for that earlier today by Paul Michael Bales, actually.
Yeah, well, he didn't answer the question, did he? I said, because he said the diamond map was disinfo. So I said, well, please provide some evidence for your thoughts on that. Have you actually looked at it? And obviously he hadn't.
No.
So I think Paul Michael
he
Bales
said he heard it from other people that we were disinfo agents.
He doesn't look at much of the information. He just reads the books that he buys, apparently.
1,000 books. He's read 1,000 books, so he's pretty fully indoctrinated with
Robotham.
Well, with Robotham et al., the Satetics.
But that's the problem with flat Earth. You've got all these people into it, and they've got no curiosity to actually go out and check the stuff that they've been told. They're just running with it without challenging it. Whereas if you're genuine truther, you want to be curious enough to check it out. I only did it because people were things about the flights at me, and I thought, well, there's got to be something to it, which is what led to me and you doing this show. Because the flights led to everything else. The flights are real, so the map can't be right. And then you've got everybody out there, everybody who's a big name, you and Free Energy, everybody to a man and a woman is running with it. You've even got David Weiss, saying that the planes are going at twice the speed of sound, which they would have to do that South America to Australia. I mean, that for a wide-bodied jet, that's ridiculous. But he's still doing it. John LeBon is actually doing a good job.
Was doing it, that we called out about it, are all still doing, are all still focusing on that map. Thomas, you're back.
Yes, my Google Hangouts cut out. I have no idea why. It just says it wasn't responding.
Well, they do that if they don't like what you're saying.
Now, back to what you guys were talking about. You were speaking on the Mandela thing. I wasn't trying to go there, but what I was trying to ask was, do we see this flat Earth movement as purposely being put into our society, or did somebody actually just wake up magically and figure out the Earth was flat one day, and suddenly start spreading the message? Where is this flat Earth coming from in the first place? Do we know anything about
this current version? Both Lawrence and I, he can speak for himself, but I believe that it was infiltrated into the truth movement in its current form. For a reason.
So you think we're supposed to know?
They planned this out decades ago, maybe even 100 or so years ago, to actually put those flat Earth clocks with the fake modeling, Back to the Future and other programs, 30 or 40 years ago.
Admiral Byrd sitting in front of the flat Earth azimuthal map during this interview that he did in the 40s?
And it's in the Illuminati.
46, 47.
Yeah.
It's part of the plan.
One of the first things Admiral Byrd did when he went to Antarctica? He made a Masonic lodge, lodge number
I didn't know that.
777. Yes.
No, I didn't know
It
that.
is.
I didn't even know.
It is under. It was. It was under the flag of New Zealand, but it is. They say that right now it is defunct or whatever. But that was one of the first things he did when he went there, was to Masonize it.
And I think when Admiral Byrd says there's all these minerals and coal and all these natural resources up there,
That was the reason they used to create the treaty.
I think they were just making it up.
No, well, it is. Of course.
I think it's
But
just,
that's
nice.
the two things that a treaty does is it prevents large scale raping and pillaging of the resources by whatever country. That's why the treaty says nobody but it's like all for one and one for all. And then the other one is that you can't have any military there, so that it can never be weaponized or whatever. It always remains off limits to everyone except for research purposes.
Yeah, well, the reason I think that we try and put the polar regions out of bounds is that is the part of the flat Earth that doesn't mirror the globe and would give away the game. So the east-west with the oceans, they join up so you can sail around the world, but the northern bit doesn't fit, and that would give the game away if people went up there. I think that's why they're trying to keep people away.
Well, here's the other thing. I watched one of those documentaries about a week or so ago with Sir David Attenborough as the whatever you call it, the narrator, and it was about the Arctic, and obviously about the polar bears and the Arctic foxes and all of the whales that come there, and the season, the short summer season where all the ice melts, and the poor polar bear has no ice to fish from because the seals. Have you seen that? Their number one food source is seal consumption, and so when all the ice melts, they don't have a way to get out there where the seals are to hunt the seals. So anyway, the whole gist of the thing is that all of the water or all the ice melts during the summer. Okay, so of course, I've made mention many times about if you go to Google Earth or you go to Google Maps and you look at Thomas, you're making a lot of racket. If you go to Google Earth and turn the little globe all the way up, back out away from the globe a pretty good distance, and then spin it. You can put your cursor on there and spin the globe around looking down on Antarctica or on the Arctic Circle. And you're only able to get a certain kind of angle in on it. They don't let you go right down on top of it. You only have to be able to come in at a 45 or 60 degree angle. And the idea is that there's no ice there. I mean, I don't know if that's why they pretend that there's ice there 24/7, because when they say they're in Arctic, they're really just like in Greenland or northern Canada or northern Russia. There is no, from what I can see, there's no frozen top of the earth like there's supposed to be. They'll show you the bottom of Earth, Antarctica. I've got that shape of Antarctica indelibly marked in my mind, a little squiggle with a little wing thing coming out on the side. But you won't see that in the Arctic. So they're making up stories completely about the Arctic and about the ice and the global warming and all that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's people actually going and doing these? Like I've seen certain videos where guys actually claim to be living there in the Arctic, in these little areas with tents, and they've got these little solar panels they put on the roof of their tents and stuff.
Well, sure, but
they
go
claim
look
the
at where the
places.
Arctic Circle is.
Yeah.
Look how far down south from the supposed center of the North Pole. Look how far south the Arctic Circle goes. It's way down in Greenland. So they never tell you exactly where they're filming. They just tell you we're in the Arctic. Well, that includes everything inside the Arctic Circle. Like I said, you could be in northern Canada, you could be in Greenland, you could be in northern Russia.
Warehouse.
Of course, I don't. Yeah, a warehouse. No, I'm kidding. Or you could be in Antarctica for all anybody knows. If you're just showing ice. Oops, sorry. If you're just showing ice.
And another thing people like to ignore about the South Pole is that star field. They like those round flat mappers. They like to pretend like all star fields in the southern hemisphere have all been faked. Like they've been taking these pictures for. And that was the first thing that came across my mind. I'm like, okay, I can understand this, but how do you explain the southern star field? Oh, well, there is no South Pole. We have a ring magnet. I'm like, but I've seen all these pictures.
Well,
I know.
What about Sigma Octantis? Isn't that the sort of equivalent of the South Pole, North Pole Polaris?
Well, yeah, that's something they're also going to have to realize, because there can't be a southern star field if this round map thing is correct, and we know it's not. But
well, what about all of these Starfield what is? No, it's not called stop motion. It's called what is it called? Time-lapse photography of star fields at the equator. I've seen them. Are they all made up?
No, and they twist both ways, so there's no question about it. You have
clockwise and counterclockwise.
And that's exactly, if you really look at a magnetic field that would be generated between a couple magnets, that's kind of how you would see it. So I'm actually kind of wondering if magnetism has something to do with how the sun and the stars are traveling across the sky.
Well, I'm pretty sure that would be the most logical explanation. Plus, I just did I was at a job site the other day, and we got onto the topic of flat Earth, and one of the workers that was there, was arguing with me that, well, I've seen this. People say in the southern hemisphere the moon's upside down from here, and how could that be if the Earth is flat? And I'm like, well, first of all, the Earth is flat, but the reason why the moon looks opposite in the southern hemisphere than from the northern hemisphere is from your viewing perspective.
Right.
And he says, well, how can that be? I mean, we're all looking at the same moon up in the same sky. And I said, okay, let's do a little experiment. And I took a piece of paper and a marker, and I drew a little smiley face, 2 eyes and a little smile and a circle. Okay, sorry for hitting the mic. And 2 pieces of blue tape, and I taped it up on the ceiling. And I said, okay, now you go over on that wall. It was a very large room. I said, go over on that wall, and you look at the smiley face and tell me if the eyes are on the top or the bottom. Well, the eyes are on the bottom from my viewing perspective. I said, okay, perfect. Now come over here to where I'm standing on the opposite side of the room and look at the smiley face. Where are the eyes? They're on the
top,
opposite. Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, bingo, perspective. I mean, it's a pretty low-tech experiment, but it proves my point. The same moon face.
I think that's because most of us, when we look at the moon, I think I figured this out, is I think we are thinking that we're looking at the side of the moon, when actually I think we're actually looking up at the bottom of the spoon, which brings me to my next question for you guys, and that is, a lot of people, including ancient Egypt, also taught this. What do you guys think of not a flat disk for a sun and a moon, but say a spoon-shaped disk? Do you think there's anything to that?
You mean like the moon is concave from our perspective?
Yeah, like it would just be a spoon with the handle ripped off, floating above, and we're seeing the bottom of the concave spoon.
Okay, wait, the bottom of the spoon. Oh, I thought you meant like the hollow of the spoon.
No, I'm thinking like what we're seeing is the very bottom of the moon, and there is no, from like where the moon's equator would be in the middle, there's nothing up. There's just the bottom half of the circle.
Okay.
Slightly flattened out. The Egyptians
So
do
a
refer to,
convex disc.
yeah, I messed up the convex and convex. The
Okay.
Egyptians do refer to it as a sun disk and a moon disk. Now, why they chose to use that word disk, I don't know. Did they choose to use that word, or is that just how it was translated? So I've kind of had this this question about stars and the alleged planets and the sun and the moon. Are these actual balls themselves, or are we just assuming they're balls because they're round and it's just a round disk? So that's another little question I've been trying to.
What do you got? Because I think I have my own opinion about that. I want to hear yours first.
Well, the big debate about the sun. Well, one thing is, does the sun stay the same size? But is the sun inside or outside of the firmament? Is it shining through the firmament?
I have that same question.
Within the firmament, you know, and we're told it's 3,000 miles away. I mean, I don't know. If I quoted 3,000 miles, that's just because that's the figure that Robotham came up with. I haven't got a sextant or one of these apps or whatever, and you know, to do the experiment, it is not as easy as they make out, because you've got to have people on different parts of the earth and taking readings and stuff like that, and nobody's actually done that experiment yet. So,
have you seen that video? It's by Pastor Ernest, I think his name is, and the name of the video is "I've Seen Planes Fly Higher Than the Sun."
Yes.
Now, see,
Sorry.
my theory.
Perspective. It's all perspective.
yeah, the sun can appear to have the clouds behind it and in front of it and above it even, but that's perspective, isn't it?
I was wondering what that was, because according to my model, you have approximately 100 to 120 miles up, you have what I call the first firmament. In the Bible would describe it as, this is the area where the birds fly, all the way up until that, and the lightning hits it during thunderstorms and creates sprites. Then I see on top of that a whole other space referred to as the second heaven, and that's where I see the sun, moon, and the stars, or the sun and the moon and wandering stars being. And if that is the case, that there's this shield, and we seem to have the shield, we seem to be able to see it during lightning storms. And if that's the case, then there's no way that sun can be coming down from the second heaven, penetrating that barrier and coming down in the clouds, because we know the clouds don't go but, what, 5-10 miles high generally?
Yeah, well, the sun, in my view, the sun is the sun is obviously essential for life on this planet, but it might not be the only light source. But the sun itself creates all the ozone, which stops the whole world turning into a pond of slime, because the sun generates the ozone by splitting down the oxygen into the ozone, which then if you do research into ozone, all it is unstable oxygen, but it's looking to pair up with harmful things like bacteria and mold and stuff like that. So it's like people who used to make the gin outside. If there was an electrical storm, it stopped the brew going because it killed all the yeast off.
Okay, I have something to show you. Let me do a screen share. Is my screen sharing a video, Amazing T-Rex? Okay. I'm not going to have any sound. I just want you to watch. Okay. You see that?
Yep. Yeah, it looks like it's moving across the table, actually.
All right. Now look. Now we got 8 of them. See how they're all looking? Turning their heads. Okay. Now watch.
That is so weird.
Okay, you want to see how that's working?
Yeah.
Now look.
What in the world?
It's concave.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. Okay.
How trippy is that? Okay, that's an optical illusion. Look how he came around the other side.
I seen something similar to that. When you looked at it in one direction, it was like a deer or something. Then when you looked at it in another direction, it was an elephant, I think.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the wire sculpture one or something.
Yeah, you saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that it's possible that the moon and the planets or the sun, anything that looks like it's a curved disk, curved to our side. That's why I ask you about the concave versus the convex. The other reason why the moon is disturbing to me as something other, oops, hold on, I still have a video running in the background. Okay. That's disturbing to me is when you look at the moon through a telescope or a zoom or whatever, and you see all of the surface craters, okay, they all look to me like they're blown out from the inside versus something landed on them and impacted from out in, okay? Just because of the nature of the way that the dust field or the crater is around it, it doesn't look like it got meteor impacted. And if it got meteor impacted, then boy, that poor sumbitch has been beat to hell compared to the Earth. I mean, if that thing is that close to us and it's getting impacted with meteors all the time, plus the craters never seem to change. I mean, you could look at a picture of the moon that somebody's taken from a long time ago one that's today.
All those craters took billions of years, didn't
billions
they?
And billions.
Billions of years.
Okay, my other thing go back to your question and to answer it is, I do not believe that the sun is reflecting on the moon. I think the moon may be reflecting a little bit of the sun. I think there is a synchronicity between the phases of the moon and what it looks like is the sun reflecting on it and making its phases. Because when I've seen the sun up in the daytime at the same time that the moon is up, the face of the moon does not perfectly reflect what would be a reflection of the sun on its phase aspect. Plus, there's times when the moon has it's new, it's gone, it's nothing, no reflection, and yet the sun's still up there and the moon's still moving around. So this all leads me to believe, my hypothesis, if I were to put one together, would be that the moon makes its own phases, and you ask, well, how could that be? Then it would have to be backlit instead of front lit.
That's all I can figure is backlit.
Okay, and why would it not be possible that it has some internal shuttering system that is like a clockworks, where every 28 days that shutter moves around, and sometimes it's completely full and sometimes it's there's no hard, because when you look at the moon in the day, when the sun's up and the moon's up and the moon has a phase and the part of the moon that's in shadow is the same color as the sky, blue around it.
Always.
Not gray, not black, not shadowed like shadows on the earth are created by the sun. It's just blue, like that part's just missing. So there's too many anomalies with the moon that that says it's not an orb. I'm going to call it an orb.
When you see the sun and the moon, I saw it a few weeks back, and the sun and the moon were quite close together in the same sky where I live. And the moon, it just looked like a few wispy clouds. It didn't look like a solid object at all. It was just,
yeah, it looks rather
flimsy.
Transparent-y or translucent, I guess you would call it when it's up in the day. But at night, when you see it in a zoom lens, I mean, I have a really nice camera I bought just for the purpose of doing these long-range experiments, like the moon and the red boat experiment and other things that I did with distance. This zoom's pretty darn good, and I have focused it on the moon to where it's full frame. I mean, it's pretty close. It's not even a telescope, it's just a camera. And holy cow, I mean, it is so incredibly bright if you don't adjust the settings that it'll just blast out, white out your lens completely when it's pretty full. But it's just as crystal clear and as it can be. I mean, you feel like you could go walk on it. It looks like it's a solid object and looks like hard terra firma. So, oh no,
Yeah.
lots of questions.
The sun appears to be the same size all the time, but the moon, I mean, I've seen the moon and it's looked absolutely massive, like 2.5 times bigger than what it is other times. And
well, on one of those David Attenborough films I saw, there was a series, and this one particular one was about Africa, and they did a lot of time-lapse photography of the sun rising and setting, and by gosh, it did get bigger and smaller as it came in and went over. I mean, it like zoomed away and it just got smaller, and I mean, noticeable enough that I was like, oh, hey, look. I wonder if they put that in plain sight on purpose.
Just a month ago, I think our moon was so huge, I mean, massive, that you couldn't see the bottom of it because the houses across the street blocked it out. I mean, that's what kind of makes me wonder, are these things, how close are they actually getting to Earth? Because I've done the A squared plus B squared plus C squared thing, and I understand the height varies by season, but according to this A squared, B squared, C squared thing of Pythagoras, there's no way the sun can be under 1,000 miles, and the moon would have to be the same way. And also, while we were talking about the eclipses, another thing I meant to mention was they're only legends. However, we have these stories about Rahu and Ketu, and when you go ask an astrologer, they have something called the moon's north node and the moon's south node. These, according to the legend, was supposed to be one demon, as the Hindu story goes, who got his head chopped off. The head became Rahu, and the body became Ketu. And they're claiming that Rahu is what literally swallows the sun, that the sun actually goes inside of the body of Rahu, and that the moon is literally swallowed by Ketu. And it was also said that the Ketu was also the source of comets and meteors in our system. Now, I don't know how true this is, but I do know that astrology has promoted this idea of a north node and a south node, and that whenever our sun and moon pass through these nodes, they do go through the eclipse. And that's the problem. Like sometimes you'll see a solar eclipse, where it looks like, they'll tell you, well, the moon's in front of the sun and it's blocking, but when you look out in the sky, you see the moon on the opposite side. If I look one direction out of my yard, I can see the sun in the eclipse, and if I turn around and look at the other, I can see the moon. I know there's a flat land under it, and I'm looking, I'm like, well, the Earth's here, and the moon's over here, and the sun's over here. How is the moon eclipsing it? It can't be.
Well, and how is the Earth casting a shadow on the moon, too? Yeah, because they're both up in the sky.
That's what makes me kind of want to pursue this study on the Ketu and Ratu. Even though I know it's classified as mythology, it really does make sense if you could explain these alleged shadow planets that you simply can't see, but once they, like Ketu, when it comes upon the moon, it's not visible until that spectrum of light hits it. And so it becomes visible when it eclipses it, because the moon would literally be inside of it, flashing outward, making it visible. So perhaps the sun, because we know there's a difference in the light between the sun and the moon, so there could it could be maybe, again, I'm just speculating, that whatever it is certainly a shadow planet swallowing these things and I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, if you think of it, just jump in. But nobody's addressing the possibility of like a
Shadow
black hole. Yeah, like a planet, a disk that completely absorbs all light, so it has no reflection of light, so it would kind of look like a black hole. Okay.
And how would we explain the red, the blood red moon? I mean, shadows are not red. You know,
Right.
and here I'm seeing this object, and you know, I got the GIF image of it, so I can sit there and watch it over and over and over. There's no such thing as a red shadow, but when this thing comes over it, it literally appears like it's in front of the moon.
Right, casting a red glow shadow. Yeah, I watched the last eclipse.
Yeah, it's like when you take a flashlight and hold it up to your hand, and you can literally see red
through the other side. Right. That's one of the things that added to my theory about the moon being backlit and possibly being as convex.
Could be, yeah, it could be backlit and then something in between the light source and the moon's body itself going back and forth, and that's very possible. I've seen some really good experiments.
About it. All of this, everything we see in heaven, it's like, it truly is like a clockwork, and clockworks. And by design, according to biblical scripture, the moon was for this, the sun was for that, the stars for this, everything's supposed to be in its order. The planets are called wandering stars because they got out of order. And everything, all of the formations of the stars, astrologically, I mean, it's remained the same for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed. Nothing's even parallaxed very much. I mean, the same drawings are drawn out for the locations of them, the way they go around in like a clock. It appears, it looks like it's going around, but it could just be going, it's part of that trick of the mind again of, is it going over? And it, based on your viewpoint, is it look like it's going in a circle? I mean, I've been watching the sun over the last weeks moving from my house is situated on the property where the front faces due north and the rear faces due south. And I've watched the shadow that is cast on the curtain, on the blind, on the back window. Every morning when I get up to go make coffee, I walk by and I look at that shadow, and I smile because I've watched the progression of the line of the eave of my house, the roof line, move on the curtain as the sun has gone more north, more north, more north. And I watch the shadow, in my front yard, looking out my kitchen window of the shadow that's cast down from the eave, where it is on the sidewalk. I have brick pavers. And I watch all this stuff, and I'm thinking, man, this is so perfectly mechanical. And I keep telling myself, when are you going to go out there and with, a marker pen and start writing on the freaking bricks the day and the date and the line of where the sun is, so that next year, this is going to keep going. So next year, you can go back and check on this day, on this date, at this time. This is where the sun line was on the bricks.
Yeah, because that's another thing about a non-moving flat Earth is all these sundials and stuff that we have literally been making since the dawn of man still work perfectly fine to this day.
Yeah. There's one that's 720 years old over in like
India. That one.
Yeah, India. Thailand or somewhere.
Oh, that was.
Well, the same thing. I mean, one of the things that got Lawrence started checking. Boy, really feedback.
I just had a thought because I haven't looked into this. Maybe somebody else.
All right, hold on, everybody, because this is such bad recording right now. Okay. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we know the sun moves between Capricorn and Cancer. But what about the moon?
Lawrence, let me bother you for a minute. Can you get out and come back, please?
Okay.
It's your sound. It does it about once every show, right about now.
Yeah, actually, it's perfect. So yeah, I guess
Computer gets overheated or something goes wrong, and he starts feeding back like that. Yeah, you brought up about the sundials. The equatorial sundials was one of the things that got Lawrence started also poo-pooing the AE map, because you wouldn't need equatorial sundials if the sun didn't go in a perfect straight line at the equator.
And that one
All right,
you
Lawrence, now you're muted.
Okay.
All right, you're back. Now
Yeah, I
you're
was
fine.
just going to say, does anybody know, like we've got the sun moving between Capricorn and Cancer over the course of a year. What about the moon? Because I just had another look at that time and date solstices. And
It
the
moves
moon
north and
seems to
south
spend,
too, Lawrence. I've watched that too.
the moon seems to spend more time in the southern hemisphere for some reason.
is that still on Cancer and Capricorn though? The moon is still going along the same thing,
again, and
right?
you can see where it is in the two times of the year. Where the hell's that gone? Let's bring it up.
It's like what's that story about the rabbit chasing the hare and the tortoise?
The hare and the tortoise,
moon is one. That's where that story came from. The moon is the tortoise and the sun is the hare, or something like that.
Well, look at that. So you've got the two positions of the extremities of how far south and how far north the sun goes. So that one's over on the left is over Capricorn, and that one's on Cancer. But if you look at the moon, it hasn't changed much over 6 months. It's still, if you look at the sun there, it's off the coast of Los Angeles. But you look at the moon, and it's still over the bottom of Africa. And then
I never considered that.
Well, why do they have this size so much different? Also,
size different. Yeah, the moon's
why is that? That's unusual.
The sun is made to look a lot smaller on that one, larger on that one, and the moon's bigger on that one. Both of them are smaller on that one, aren't they?
Both of them are smaller. I don't know if there's any reason, but I would bet there is, because I don't think they do anything just by accident.
Yeah.
Okay, you know how the moon, the sun makes that, what's it called, analemma, that little figure 8 pattern over the year. Does the moon do the same thing?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if there is a moon analemma or not. That's a good question. It's probably something we should research.
I'm going to Google search it right now.
Okay. The idea for the analemma is not anything more than it is a culmination of the timestamp of the sun, taking a picture of the sun at its location at the same intervals throughout the year, which makes it look like a figure 8, infinity. And one of the arguments for the flat Earth flat Earth version of the map is that the top of the analemma is smaller than the bottom of the 8 loop of the analemma. You have to turn your phone so we can see the computer, Thomas.
Okay. More. There. Is that? Can you?
Is that a moon analemma?
Yeah, that's what it's. They're calling it lunar analemma. It's a composite, though. I don't know if that's. I noticed that word.
Sure it's a composite. They all are of photographs put to meshed together to show the position.
Yeah, there does appear. Yeah, no, that just appears to be a straight line, but that's just one night. This is probably solar. It's not telling me. It's not specifying.
Yeah, I think that's a research topic of its own. Is just the travel of the moon across the sky. What I'm saying is it certainly seems to be a a perfectly tuned clockwork system for them to be able to mimic it into this solar system model of the spinning and the vortexing and the flying. And somebody asked the question, have you seen the model that they made of the sun barreling through the universe with the planets all going like this? And somebody said, well, that certainly looks like a comet. How come it doesn't have a tail, the sun, if it's flying through? Why don't we see a trail from the sun?
Think about that. I seen that article. I didn't know what to think about that. I'm like,
well, it's an interesting concept. I mean, a light trail, if we're, flying hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of miles an hour through space, and everybody's like, well, you just forget that everything is just so big and you wouldn't be able to see because it's so big. And I'm like, will you quit with the so big? I mean, the so big works for why we can't see the curve, and the so big works for why we can't see the whole Earth from outer space, from the space station, and the so big works for why we can't find the curvature on the ground. And, I mean, I'm so over the so big. Yeah, okay, everything's so big, but at the same time, it's all measurable, obviously. Yeah. If you didn't have anything else to do but watch the sun and track it and plot it and make little maps and do that all day long, which, computers do that mechanically.
Well, all this clockwork, as they describe it, is supposedly over the course of a year, but apparently Halley's Comet is only seen every 75 years. I mean, how would they factor that into it? Did you think
that's part of the clockwork? That's that one big gear that goes click, 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 way on the outside of all the other gears. I mean, for crying out loud, if Mark Sargent can have lava pumps underneath the Earth for the volcanoes, then, we can have big gears.
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't go for that. That's the thing that I didn't like about his video when he got off into that.
Totally speculation passed off as his model, but
we haven't been down more than 8 miles, so right. We really don't know what's down there. And which, by the way, we were talking about earlier, since we don't really know the thickness of this plane, that does not rule out a hollow Earth. I'm not saying I believe it.
No, it does not rule it out. No, it does not rule it out. Because if you're a biblical person, you're going to go, well, I mean, hell's down there somewhere,
right?
Or the Sheol, as they call it, or however you say that word.
Just about every culture had an underground civilization. I remember doing a lot of the Zechariah Sitchin way back in the day when I was into the Ancient Aliens thing. There is supposed to be at least 9 doorways in 9 different cities, and these cities all talked about them, that you could actually physically go into these places, caves or whatever, and they would literally take you down into Tartarus and Hades and all these other places, and then they had the rules.
There's supposed to be one in Los Angeles, I think, too, isn't there?
I don't know about that. I know there's supposed to be one at the bottom of somewhere inside a Mammoth Cave. I think that's in Kentucky.
I've been in Mammoth Cave. Well,
yeah,
Lawrence and I were talking about the giants and where they lived underground for a couple episode or two ago, and the ones where they feed the.
I like that subject. I wish I would have been there for the subject.
Too.
People talk about, as you progress, the spiritual people, they talk about you progress and you become more spiritual or enlightened, and you move up to higher levels of spirituality, and maybe hell is a place that there's a lot more denser energy down there, and there's a lot more trouble and strife. And I mean, for all we know, we could be in hell now. It is turning into a bit of a hell on earth, isn't it? All the shit that's going on.
It sure is.
Maybe we are actually in hell, and
it's a possibility. I mean, I watched a video. I clicked on a video this morning of a guy on the bus with took off his robe or his covering or whatever, and he had some kind of masochistic looking bikini butt covering laces and high heeled shoes. He was playing and singing and shaking his butt, and there was this little boy in the foreframe of the video. It would look to be maybe 7 or 8 years old, and he's watching this crazy guy. I shake my thing, and everybody, I don't care if you like it or not, and all these people on the train are just like going, whatever, dude. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's stopping him. Nobody's like beating him up. I get it. And
well, maybe it's just a state of mind, and heaven and hell can both be on earth from your perspective, from where you're coming from. Some people have great lives with all the shit that's going on, and some people just have an entire life of misery, don't they? So you've got the contrast of hell for those people that live in abject poverty every day. They can't even afford to feed their kids. Their entire life may be hell. And hell itself would not be much worse. But those people who have, they're born into great wealth and they never have to work, and, they get the best food and the best holidays and everything they ever want. They don't want for anything. Then for them, from some people's perspective, it is heaven on earth already, isn't it?
Well, I've had people say that, yeah.
According to the Gnostic idea, that's actually what you guys are talking about, is pretty much what they believe, that it's going back to the Saturn thing we was talking about.
Well,
he's gone again. Well, we're on 3 hours, Laura. maybe it's just a state of mind.
Well, I also saw a video this morning where a guy said that each one of us, when we're born into these meat suits, we have both an angel and a demon in there with us, and that one takes over the other, whatever. There he's back.
Yeah, I got cut off.
It's the voices that you have inside your head, like when you do something that you shouldn't do, and one voice saying do it, and the other one saying, "Oh, I'll do it anyway,"
Right.
Like you're trying to be really strict with what you're eating, and sorry,
I think they
I'm
call
going to have
that
a
the
tonic or whatever.
DEMONIC, demonic. Okay, so guys, we're coming up on 3 hours. We have about 3 or 4 minutes. So who has closing statements that they'd like to get something off their chest or talk about something they're doing before we have to run?
Yeah, if you're watching, go and get the Theodolite app. Come on to flatearthconspiracy.com Facebook page, and there's a link where you can actually get this app and get out there now in June if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and get some readings on the sun. You're going to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and stay up till 10 o'clock at night or whatever time it is, and take some readings on the sun. Let's see where it is.
Okay. Thanks, Lawrence.
I want to see the sun in the north.
I want to see the sun in the north, too.
I've never
Thomas,
seen
what do you have? What are you working on? What are you thinking?
Well, just want to thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm going to continue. I think I am going to look a little bit harder into Lawrence's map, because I kind of like that diamond. I like the square map. I like that diamond map a little bit also. If I could leave with any message, I would tell any flat earther that's getting into this, stay away from that round map. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. Research. Stop listening to what people tell you in the video. Yes, it's amazing information, but verify all of it, not just the parts that sound good. So that's pretty much all I got to say about it. Get rid of that darn map, and we can talk then.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for joining us today, and I look forward to having you on with us again. And it's been a fun addition to the show today. So, and Thomas has a Facebook group called the Flat Earth News, and our Facebook group is flatearthconspiracy.com, both on Facebook. And anyway, thanks you guys, and I had a great time, and we covered some nice things. And for those of you who have never looked at the diamond-shaped map, I invite you to go to this same YouTube channel and look up the video that says Free Our Flat Earth Map Workshop, and watch Lawrence explain it to you. So good day, everyone. Good night, everyone, and see you guys soon. Thanks so much.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.